Begin in just a moment. We'll let the open signal folks do their magic. All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is the Thursday, June 11th, 2020 afternoon session of the Portland City Council. Good afternoon, everyone. Carla, please call the roll.
Good afternoon. Hardesty?
Here.
Udaly? Fritz?
Here.
Wheeler?
Here.
Excuse me, Mayor. Commissioner Udaly had to sign in on something else. She's having some computer problems. But she'll be right back.
Wait just a minute. Is she's signing in right now?
Yes, she is.
All right, let's just, what I'll do is I'll do the electronic requirement and the rules of order and decorum while we're waiting. Under Portland City Code and state law, the City Council is holding this meeting electronically. All members of the council are attending remotely by phone, and the city has made several avenues available for the public to listen to the audio broadcast of this meeting. The public can also provide written testimony to the council by emailing the council clerk. The council is taking these steps as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the need to limit in-person contact and promote physical distancing. The pandemic is an emergency that threatens the public health, safety, and welfare, which requires us to meet remotely by electronic communications. Thank you all for your continued patience, flexibility, and understanding as we manage through this challenging situation to do the city's business. And I will now call in legal counsel to read the rules of order and decorum. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Mayor. To participate in council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office for communications to briefly speak about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony on resolutions or the first readings of ordinances. The published council agenda at portlandoregon.gov/auditor contains information about how and when you may sign up for testimony while the city council is holding electronic meetings. You should address the matter being considered at the time. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you are a lobbyist. If you are representing an organization, please identify it. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. When your time is up, the presiding officer will ask you to conclude. Disruptive conduct such as shouting, refusing to conclude your testimony when your time is up, or interrupting others' testimony or council deliberations will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being placed on hold or ejected from the remainder of the electronic meeting. Finally, please be aware that all council meetings are recorded.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it. I want to just take one moment this afternoon to thank my colleagues for reading a statement on my behalf at the beginning of yesterday afternoon's council session. I appreciated it. My mother, Leslie, passed away on Tuesday evening. She went peacefully and she went without any pain. I felt very fortunate that I could be at her side along with other family members. I had the opportunity to tell her both how much I loved her and to thank her for everything she did for me over the years. And in that respect, I feel that I was very fortunate. Of course, I was not therefore able to be present to hear testimony yesterday, but I did spend this morning reviewing the record. I didn't get through all of it, but I got through most of it. And I look forward to hearing more testimony today before we take our final vote on the budget. I have been briefed by my staff on the totality of the public testimony as well. We have one item that was carried over from yesterday that we need to take care of today. That is item 444. Carla, could you please read item 444?
Yes. Authorize a borrowing of not more than $42 million in anticipation of the Fire and Police Disability and Retirement Fund levy for fiscal year 2020-21.
And Carla, was there any testimony on this item?
I don't believe anybody signed up for this afternoon. We asked for testimony yesterday, though.
Very good. This is an emergency ordinance. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Hardesty,
Yes.
Udaly,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye, the ordinance is adopted. With regard to another housekeeping item, there are 3 items that are being withdrawn from today's posted agenda. One is a time certain that I'll read at a later hour. If you could read item 455, please, first.
Sorry, there.
Sorry, we're jumping around, Carla.
That's okay. I should have known. I'm sorry. 455, authorize $1,623,850 for grant agreements to be divided among the 5 nonprofit neighborhood district coalitions to support neighborhood associations and community engagement activities from July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2021.
And Commissioner Udaly, I understand you're withdrawing this for now or moving it to a later date. Did you have any other comments?
Thank you, Mayor. We're just pulling them back to the office to make some edits, and we will bring them again on June 24th.
Very good. Carla, could you read 456? I believe it's the same.
Authorize $851,646 for grant agreements with Center for Intercultural Organizing, Unite Oregon, Latino Network, Immigrant Refugee Community Organization, Native American Youth and Family Center, Momentum Alliance, and Urban League of Portland for the Diversity and Civic Leadership Organizing Project for July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2021.
Commissioner Udaly, same thing.
Same thing, pulling them back to the office. We'll bring them back on June 24th.
Very good. Today, then, we are going to take the final steps and the necessary votes as part of the adoption of the fiscal year 2021 budget as prescribed by Oregon state law. This is a continuation of the hearing that was started yesterday on items 450, 451, 452, and 453. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Budget Director Jessica Kennard to walk us through today's agenda.
Should we read those titles first?
Yeah, sure. Just to be all legal, why don't we do that? 450, 451, 452, and 453. Again, this is a continued hearing.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. 450, certify that certain services are provided by the city to establish eligibility for state shared revenues. 451, approve accepting funds from the state of Oregon under the State Revenue Sharing Program for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020 and ending June 30, 2021. 452, adopt the annual budget of the city and establish appropriations for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020 and ending June 30, 2021. And 453, approve levying taxes for the city for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020 and ending June 30, 2021.
Director Kennard.
Thank you, Mayor. For the record, Jessica Kennard, City Budget Director. As the Mayor mentioned, we're here today to adopt the budget for fiscal year 2021. As mentioned yesterday, there are a number of procedural steps that we need to go through. And as Carla read into the record, we have 4 items in front of you as part of this process. Yesterday, Commissioner Hardesty, as the President of the Council, introduced each of the 4 items and heard public testimony. We will review each of these items again today as we move to vote on each. The first course of business in adopting the budget is holding a proposed use hearing on state shared revenue. The hearing was opened and closed yesterday, so we will move to the next item, which is considering a resolution to certify that the city meets the eligibility requirements for state shared revenue. So state law requires that we provide a number of services in order to be eligible for this state shared revenue, and this resolution certifies that we do so. Mayor, I turn it over to you to call for public testimony and then call for a vote on this resolution.
Very good. Is there any public testimony on the resolution? Carla, any testimony on 450?
I'm checking. I believe the bulk of the testimony had signed up for the 452.
I'm certain.
Yes, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Keelan, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
We historically do
No.
not have public testimony.
I'm just checking. Thanks.
All right, very good. Any further discussion on 450? Please call the roll.
Hardesty,
Aye.
Udaly,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. And 451, I would expect, is much of the same. This is the consideration and to vote upon an ordinance to accept the state shared revenue. Jessica, anything else on this item?
Nope, now that we have certified that we're eligible, we just need to accept the revenue, and that's what this ordinance does.
Any public testimony on this item, Carla?
We asked for testimony on this yesterday.
And so the answer is no.
No.
Any
Yes,
further
sorry.
discussion? Please call the roll.
Hardesty,
Aye.
Udaly,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. All right, Director Kennard, the big show.
The big show. The next item is the adopted budget ordinance, and this is the item for which most folks have signed up to testify. Yesterday, I provided a high-level overview of technical changes included in the budget as filed, and we did hold some public testimony. Today, the mayor will entertain motions from council to amend the budget. Then the mayor will call for public testimony. Then at the conclusion of testimony, council will deliberate and discuss and vote on the proposed amendments, and then finally vote to adopt the budget as amended. Mayor, I will turn it back over to you.
All right, very good. Colleagues, I believe in front of you, you will have, or in your inbox, you will have a document that is a consolidation of all of the proposed amendments from various members of council. It looks like this. Does everybody have access to this document?
Not yet, Mayor. I'm trying to get it sent to me now. I still
Okay.
haven't seen that document.
Very good. So what I'll do is I'll be a little narrative heavy while we're getting this in our inboxes. The first amendments for consideration to 452 are my own. The first is a motion to move the hearings office function and budget from the city auditor's office to the chief administrator's office within the Office of Management and Finance, and allocate $18,615 in general fund resources to the chief administrator's office support the administrative workload associated with the hearings office. And to be clear on all of these, we're just going to move them and second them. We're not going to vote till after we hear public testimony on these items. But I'm moving this. Can I get a second?
A second.
Thank you. Commissioner Hardesty seconds. Wheeler 1. Wheeler 2 is a motion to convert the Portland Parks and Recreation Sustainable Future position from limited term to permanent. Can I get a second?
Second. Second.
Commissioner Fritz seconds. Next are Commissioner Fritz's amendments. Her first is a motion to allocate. I'll let Commissioner Fritz make her own amendments. Commissioner Fritz.
Oh, thank you. Just for all time's sake. The first motion is to allocate $150,000 for a tribal liaison position in the Office of Government Relations with resources from reducing the Police Bureau budget.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. And then the second one is a motion to add $123,985 for the Civil Rights Title VI program in the Office of Equity and Human Rights with resources from reducing the Police Bureau budget.
Second.
And just so folks know, both of these were requests that were in the submitted requested budget, but were not previously funded because of lack of resources, but there's now new resources, so we're adding them back in, please.
Very good. Commissioner Daly, did you have any amendments?
I'm looking at this document and I guess I'm a little confused because there's several amendments that you did not advance. So I'm actually a little lost as to which ones I'm supposed to advance.
Commissioner Daly, thank you. So the ones that are on the sheet that I did not offer, I am deferring to other amendments that other of my colleagues are putting on the table. And just to be very crystal clear, there is an amendment that I had proposed regarding the transit police. I am going to defer to a different amendment by Commissioner Hardesty, I believe, related to the transit police. There was another amendment which I was going to offer up to reduce the police bureau's budget and reallocate those funds to the community. I'm not making that amendment out of deference for a different amendment that does the same thing that has been offered, I believe, also by Commissioner Hardesty. And there was a third.
Mayor.
Sorry. Commissioner Hardesty, did you say something? I think she's going to her printer. And then the third item was an amendment with regard to the school resource officers. I'm not putting that one on the table either because I like the language in a different amendment related to school resource officers. So I support the amendments. I will be supporting different amendments rather than the ones I had proposed that relate to the same items. That's why I did not mention them.
Okay,
Does
I'm
that
gonna go,
clarify your question?
kind of. I'll go ahead and read my amendments into the
Very good.
record. Amendment number 1, to reduce $4,610,042 in ongoing general fund resources and eliminate 50 vacant FTE in the police bureau. 2, motion to amend attachment D to include a budget note to commit to a community process to inform future general fund allocation decisions around resources made available by these actions. 3, motion to amend attachment D and add a budget note regarding secondary employment in the police bureau as follows. Enforcement and reporting out of secondary employment in the Police Bureau, Council directs the following. The Police Bureau shall put a system in place to ensure that officers working special duty work or secondary employment do not exceed 20 hours per week per the terms of the Portland Police Association labor agreement. 2, the Police Bureau shall not allow compensatory time instead of pay for compensation for special duty work or secondary employment per the terms of the Portland Police Association labor agreement. The Police Bureau shall put systems in place to ensure that the above does not occur. In 6 months, the Bureau shall report back to Council on the systems incorporated and effectiveness of such systems over the period of time between enactment and the report to Council. 4, motion to reduce $2,291,728 in ongoing recreational cannabis tax resources in the Police Bureau for the Traffic Division and direct the Bureau to support the Traffic Division within its general fund allocation. So no second for that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll second that. I didn't know if that was a motion. I'd be happy to second number 4.
5, motion to amend attachment D to include a budget note directing the Police Bureau to maintain staffing levels within the Traffic Division.
Commissioner, I believe that that is the right thing to do, but I think we can work that out with the new police chief rather than actually making it a direct.
That division has already been decimated. It is grossly under-resourced and understaffed. And I can't support taking that money away from it unless we're going to commit to preserving the staffing today.
I appreciate that, Commissioner Daly. I will just say that with the resources the Police Bureau will have, they will have to make different decisions about where they invest those resources. And I am willing to work with you and the new police chief to make sure that we prioritize transit officers to make sure that we are keeping our streets safe. I have no doubt that the new police chief, Chief Lavelle, has a commitment to that effort. And he will be here later, and you can ask him specifically about that.
Yeah, we'll hear from the chief after the amendments and after testimony. He's asked for an opportunity to address the council, and we'll certainly let him do that. Commissioner.
And my sixth motion, I remain very confused because it was my understanding that I would be moving an item on the transit police. Then I heard it was under the mayor, and now the mayor has said it's coming from Commissioner Hardesty. So I need some clarity on that.
Yes, Commissioner Hardesty, why don't you start with your amendment 4, which is directly related to that item?
Yes,
Mayor,
I'm sorry, who's
before we move on, can we just confirm that we have a second for each of Commissioner Daly's amendments?
I did not hear that, except I have seconded her amendment number 4, which is the motion to reduce 2.291728 in ongoing recreational cannabis tax resources. I've seconded that. Commissioner Hardesty, can you read your amendment 4 because it's related to Commissioner Daly's question?
Yes, Mayor. Motion to reduce by $4,357,372 the intergovernmental resources and eliminate 24 FTE associated with the Transit Police Unit and the Portland Police Bureau.
Second. Do you want to go back and start your list?
Yes, sir. I'd be happy to do that. The first motion to reduce by $5,373,451 in ongoing general fund resources and eliminate 38 FTE in the Police Bureau related to the Gun Violence Reduction Team and the Metro Gang Task Force.
Second.
The next motion to reduce by 1.9 million, 1,913,226 in ongoing general fund resources and eliminate 14 FTE vacant police officer positions in the Portland Police Bureau to fully eliminate the school resource officer program.
Second.
Next motion, to reduce by $1,104,341 in ongoing general fund resources and eliminate 8 FTEs associated with the Special Emergency Response Team, also known as CERT, in the Portland Police Bureau.
Second.
Next item, motion to reduce by $4,357,372 intergovernmental.
We already did this, Commissioner. We already got this
Oh
one.
yeah, we did that
We're
one.
good to
Yes.
go.
I was on a roll.
You were. And have I overlooked any other amendments that anybody wants to put on the table at this point? Chisna. Okay. All right. I think that concludes putting amendments on the table. So now it's time for public testimony. And Carla, how many people signed up? The new people are not able to sign up today. We heard from many people yesterday, and I believe there's 40 some odd left for today. Is that correct?
But we have, I believe, about 74, 75 people signed up right now. We had about 75 left over who were on the line that did not get to speak yesterday.
So let me ask a question of my colleagues who were here yesterday. My assumption is we want to get to the vote today. And so I would propose that we limit testimony to 2 minutes each, that we ask people to keep their testimony as limited as possible so that we can get through as many people as possible, but that we limit testimony to 2 hours before we have our deliberations and take the vote. Does that square with my colleagues?
Yes, Mayor, and let me just say that I told people yesterday that we would only have 2 hours today. So you are consistent with the message I gave yesterday.
I'm glad we're on the same page. Thank you, Commissioner. So Carla.
And Mary, if I might weigh in.
Commissioner
If I might just comment. It was really impressive how President Hardesty ran the meeting yesterday and how people were very mindful of not taking too much space, and they stopped usually before time. So I think we should be able to get through a lot of people.
Glad to hear it. Let's go ahead and get
Commissioner Fritz, I would say one more thing, Mayor. We ask people to prioritize BIPOC community voices. And so we know there's a lot of interest, but we also know it's because Black Lives Matter that people have shown up in such force in our emails, in our phones, and in person. And so that might be a good way to continue to center those voices so that we're hearing from the people most impacted first.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's a good admonition. With that, Carla, go ahead and get into the list, please.
Okay, the first 3 will be Rachel Adler, Kate Hall, and Jessica Atwater.
Good afternoon, Rachel.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, yes, good to go.
Okay, hello, my name is Rachel Adler, and I'm a white resident of Northeast Portland's Concordia neighborhood. I'm a member organizer and former chapter leader of the Portland chapter of Resource Generation, an organization of young, wealthy, and class-privileged people who are working to equitably distribute land, wealth, and power. I want to echo the demands of my neighbors that we need an immediate, at minimum, $50 million divestment from the Portland Police Bureau's 2021 fiscal year budget and investment into Black futures. In addition, I demand that the PPB end its relationship to the federal 1033 program, which supplies militarized weapons and supplies to the police. I also demand that the City of Portland's cannabis tax fund are divested from the PPP budget and are invested into reparations for those harmed by the war on drugs. Finally, I demand that police presence is eliminated in historically Black neighborhoods, communities of color, and areas with high houseless populations. Council members and Mayor Wheeler, we need to act boldly and bravely and reimagine how community safety can be achieved in Portland now. I demand that we divest from and dismantle the PPB now and reinvest in Black futures and reparations now. I yield the remainder of my time to my BIPOC neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute. Thank you, Rachel, for your testimony. Next person, Carla.
It's Kate Hall.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
My name is Kate Hall and I live in downtown Portland. With the global coronavirus pandemic and massive uprisings all across the country in the wake of George Floyd's murder, we are seeing that things we never once thought were possible are possible. Minneapolis City Council is committed to disbanding the Minneapolis Police Department after decades of organizing by Black leaders. It's time for Portland to follow suit and fully disband the PPB once and for all. As other people have mentioned, the Minneapolis City Council President Lisa Bender said, "Our efforts at incremental police reform have failed, period." We know that police reforms and incrementalism do not work to increase public safety and eliminate violence. We should not be trying to just reduce the number of Black people murdered by the police. We need to eliminate those murders altogether. Every cop is part of a violent institution designed to cage, kill, and control Black people. They cannot be reformed with trainings and gadgets. The only way forward is defunding and disbanding. I'm with Care Not Cops today, and we're demanding that City Council reduce the PPB budget by at least $50 million this year and continue decreasing by at least $50 million each year going forward. We're demanding the elimination of vacant positions, the implementation of a hiring freeze, and a reduction in the total number of officers. These funds should be folded back into the general and special appropriations funds. Funds allocated for gang policing should be invested in Black communities in ways determined by those most impacted and grassroots groups such as Don't Shoot Portland and Freedom to Thrive. We are also demanding that the policing of protests stops immediately. The PPB relationship to the federal 1033 program, which supplies militarized weapons, gear, and vehicles to local police departments across the country, must be ended. City Council must commit to never vote for PPB budget increases again. Now is the time. This cannot wait any longer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Christopher Rosimo.
Christopher, you're up.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, give me just a moment to pull up the document that I prepared. Good afternoon, council members. I speak as a person who has lived and worked in Portland for 15 years, in the numbers, in the schools, the prisons, and the courts, with a focus on mental health, community safety, community engagement, addiction counseling, juvenile criminal investigation, juvenile family law investigation, and cultural awareness. I am a fat, queer, witchy, non-binary brown bastard who has been bruised by the police, whose blood is on these streets. I'm living on stolen indigenous land, and my voice is only heard now by Black trans women and other BIPOC citizens who recognize that this is our duty. I speak with the compassion, the patience, and the fury of my ancestors on behalf of my children, and you will listen. I prepared a statement for myself and those 12 citizens, and I have timed my statement, but being heard will depend on you listening and not interrupting. While I appreciate the wisdom and diplomacy of Madam Commissioner Hardesty yesterday, I will not be tonally or I'll be silenced. The well-placed use of an F-bomb to illustrate what should not ruffle more feathers than tear gas canisters exploding crowds of innocent people. Trappings of decorum you are clinging to is a byproduct of this racist system that has disenfranchised people of color, committed cultural genocide by taking away our language and access to education. This proceeding itself is exclusionary to our resource and scarce community. I hear the sounds of pain and anguish and fury of my ancestors, but I cannot understand their words. How the hell could you? Commissioner Fritz, your silence is deafening. Reading your public statement amounted to drinking to a glass of old skim milk. Commissioner Udall, while I appreciate your vocalization yesterday and your commitment to solidarity, the pictures that you posted look like they were just slapped up moments before our meeting. I expect direct action, not just decorations and lip service. Mr. Wheeler, my condolences for your loss. That is the extent of my compassion you will receive today. Your personal loss will not exempt you from being called to task for your attitude by your constituents. I do not trust your ability to moderate my forum when you have demonstrated a complete lack of criticism of your own. You say you share our concerns, but you share none of the risk. You say you hear us, but you deploy a military-grade sonic weapon to drown us out and harm us. Your hypocrisy knows no bounds, and you seem to be a complete stranger to shame. You all still don't seem to get it. I will not yield my time to explain again the gravity of this situation. Each council member at this point should have been compelled by their own moral compass to have done this work already. You cannot honestly claim to recognize the system is inherently corrupt, tyrannical.
Next individual, please.
The next three are Jessica Atwater, Madeline Pape, and Mason Mimi Yadira.
Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, you're good to go.
Hi, Mayor Wheeler, Commissioner Hardesty, Commissioner Udaly, and Commissioner Fritz. My name is Jessica Atwater. I'm a resident of the Montevilla neighborhood here in Portland. So I think my testimony has to change a bit from yesterday. I'm encouraged by a lot of the amendments put forward today, but I still don't think we're quite there. Mayor Wheeler, you said yourself, this is our opportunity to reimagine every aspect of policing. Let's go big. Portland likes to be different. Let's have the courage to face the fear of uncertainty that comes with enormous systemic change, like defunding traditional policing. Let's be different by putting our money where our mouths are and showing our Black community members that their lives matter. I'm so grateful to you, Commissioner Hardesty, for leading a lot of these efforts for so many years. And I just want to talk to the council today to support the Portland African American Leadership Foundation's demands to decrease the total PPB budget by at least $15 million, implementing a hiring freeze and committing to ending any new hires of PPB sworn officers, stop policing the protests, ending PPB's relationship to the federal 1033 program, which supplies militarized weapons and gear to the police, and end the use of police responders to health or mental health calls and wellness checks, and implement alternative responses that are not led or contingent on interaction with the police. Thank you so much. I yield my time to my BIPOC community members.
Thank you, Jessica.
Madeline Pape.
Hi, Madeline. Madeline, are you unmuted?
Looks like Madeline muted herself again. She's unmuted now.
Madeline, can you speak? Let's see if we can hear you. She's on the phone. Try *6 maybe. Let's come back to Madeline. Madeline, if you can hear me, we're not hearing you. So hang in there and let's see if we can resolve the issue. We'll go on to the next person for now.
Mason Mimi Yadira.
Hi, Mason.
Hello?
Hi, we can hear you.
Oh, hi. My name is Mason Mimi Adida. I live here in Portland, Oregon, and I'm calling to demand that City Council reduce the Portland Police Bureau budget by $50 million this year immediately and $50 million every year after. The demands that we have set forward are not being met, and this is not enough to say that these reforms are going to do it for this year. It's obviously not. And I just want to remind all of you that the pressure is going to stay on. Your seats can all be taken away if you're not going to listen to all the people who are demanding this. Everyone who has called pretty much has demanded $50 million immediately. And if this demand cannot be met, the city is not going to trust all of you, and you're not representing us. Thank you.
Thank you, Madeline. Next person, please, Carla.
We tried Madeline again.
Yeah, let's see, Madeline. Let's see if we can hear you. No, still isn't working, Madeline. I'm sorry. For some reason, maybe if you log out, log back in, that'll fix it. Sometimes that works for me. Let's move on to the next person for right now.
The next three will be Catalina Gaitan, Francie Neville, and Seth Fox.
Hi, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Hi, my name is Catalina Gaitan. I'm a Latinx lifelong resident of Northeast Portland's Sabin neighborhood. I'm calling in support of abolishing Portland's police force, beginning with divesting at least $50 million from their upcoming budget. Growing up in Portland, I've seen firsthand the disparities between how our public schools are resourced. I'm from the East Side, but my siblings and I were bused across the river to attend West Side schools under the Spanish Immersion program, and white, wealthy public schools like Lincoln receive vastly more support and resources from the city than East Side schools like Jefferson and Benson. In high school, when I volunteered at Lentz Elementary School, the students were handed fruit as they left for the day because so many of the students were hungry. As Sabin has gentrified over the last 25 years, I've watched our neighborhood elementary school get progressively more support and resources from the city as more white people have moved into this neighborhood, replacing Black families. I bring these things up today to say our tax dollars aren't being allocated correctly, that nearly $250 million that we pour into the toxic and dysfunctional Portland Police Bureau. Imagine how we could use that to compassionately address our houselessness crisis, how we could address racial inequities in our school system and end hunger in Portland, make public transit free, and guarantee all Portlanders access to healthcare and a living wage. As a community, we can and already have come up with better ways of keeping each other safe and healthy, and it's time to recognize that policing, surveilling, and incarcerating human beings is hurting us, not helping us. City Council, please defund and abolish the police. Reallocate that money to strengthening and supporting the people of Portland, not the system that's hurting us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Catalina.
Go with, looks like, let's go with Madeline. Her mic is open, I see.
Can you hear me?
Yes. All right, it
Finally,
worked.
yay.
Welcome.
All right, thank you. My name is Madeline Pape, and I work as a music teacher in the Montevilla neighborhood. I've lived in Northeast Portland for most of my life, and for my community, I am here to encourage a complete divestment from, followed by a commitment to ultimately disband the Portland Police Department. The years of attempted reform within the police system have proven that reform is not enough. If we are to have hope of a safe and beautiful future, we must abolish the police. I stand with the demands for the defunding by $50 million yearly and redirection of funds towards community programs previously articulated.
Strengthening and supporting the people of Portland, not the system that's hurting us. Thank you for your time.
What?
Thank you, Catalina.
Go with,
Wait, Carla, one moment, please. Could you,
looks like, let's go with Madeline. Her mic is open, I see.
Carla, can you hear me?
Yeah, that's something like a recording going through.
Carla, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can we take a pause for one moment? I need you to read item 457.
Yes.
Happened. And the years of attempted reform within
457, amend the comprehensive plan map, zoning map, and Title 33, planning and zoning, to revise the single dwelling residential designations and base zones.
This is an administrative action. This will just take a moment, folks. Colleagues, due to the urgent matters we need to consider today, we're going to continue the residential infill project hearing, item 457, which was scheduled for right now, 2:40 p.m. today, to June 18th at 2 p.m. Again, we're rescheduling residential infill to June 18th at 2 p.m. We had 43 people signed up to testify on RIP today. Those individuals will receive information from staff about joining the continued hearing. We encourage other interested individuals, including those who already testified, to watch the continued hearing on Channel 30 or the live stream. The written record, which was originally scheduled to close at 8 p.m. tonight, will be left open until 8 p.m. on June 18th. Written testimony may continue to be submitted through the MAP app online or by sending a letter to the council clerk's office. Thank you. Now we'll get back to public testimony on the police budget.
I'm not sure if Madeline had finished. Madeline, were you done?
I was not done. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
If I may I request to start from the beginning?
If you feel that's necessary, this is your time. Go for it.
Thank you. If we are to have hope of a safe and beautiful future, we must abolish the police. I stand with the demands for the defunding by $50 million yearly and redirection of funds towards community programs previously articulated. Additionally, I demand 1, immediately stop policing protests. The police standing in riot gear behind a fence is not solidarity, but a clear stance that our government opposes the Black Lives Matter movement. 2, there must be an immediate ban on all chemical agents, rubber bullets, flash grenades, and other police weapons under all circumstances. Protesters are putting our lives on the line for this cause, by which I mean the police violence is threatening our very existence as we fight. 3, police attacks on the media must be a fireable offense. There is video evidence of physical attacks against journalists and press. The media is there to protect our First Amendment right, and any attack against such is an attack to our humanity. As an educator, I am exhausted seeing the police allocated more and more funds every year and education being slashed left and right. The students I work with are amazing. Their future holds the potential for great leadership, compassion, and creativity, but their future can't exist if we continue to support this racist and capitalistic department. The prison industrial complex still relies heavily on the slavery of Black and Brown people. Black lives matter more than the United States economy and corporate greed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Seth Fox.
Welcome, Seth.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, you're good to go.
I support defunding the police. 50 million is not enough. I yield my time. Thank you.
That was short and to the point and unmistakable in your views. Thank you, Seth. Next person, please, Carla.
The next three will be Taylor Stevenson, Sean Aplano, and Joycelyn McCauley.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Taylor, we can hear you.
Hi, this is my first time ever being involved in anything like this, and I'm proud. I'm new to Portland. I moved here in September. I moved here for a better quality of life. I believe from seeing in the other cities that I had lived in, LA, New York, San Francisco, I was tired. I grew up 20 minutes from Oakland, California. I watched people be treated drastically different by the police and the systems that we have in place. My whole life, I was done. I didn't want children in this world anymore, and I am the last person you would expect to not want to have a child. And I can't believe this is happening, but I'm so glad it is, because I see the ultimate change in this world that has needed to happen for a very long time is finally happening. And I will not be a voice in this movement, and I will not stop using my voice to say $50 million to a police system that does not work. It doesn't work. I'm sorry. I was gonna give away my time to the BIPOC community, which I'm just learning about, and I am here with you, but I can't not speak. I can't not speak because I have mental health issues. I have family with mental health issues. I have seen the displaced in society. We need this money. Everybody does, but the Black people right now, and have always needed it to get them out of the situation that we are in. And our communities, our country needs it. The world is watching. Our country needs this money. Portland, Oregon needs this money to go to the humanitarian response to the issues that we have created in our society. I'm gonna stop now because I will keep going, but this money needs to not go to the police. It needs to go to the other programs that are there and being worked on that can help these problems and the Black community. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor.
Next is Sean Aplano.
Hey, Sean.
Hi, thank you. Hello, my name is Sean Aplenalp, and I live in the Lloyd District. Condolences, Mayor, for yesterday, today, and thank you for the commissioners for being here today again. While acknowledging the systemic racism that is woven into the city's government and police system, I'd like to jump forward to why Mayor Wheeler's $12 million olive branch for the BIPOC community is an underwhelming start. First off, only $7 million of that is coming from the police budget, and $5 million from somewhere yet to be determined. This is after Superintendent Guerrero dismissed the SROs at nearly a $4 million cut, and then we have the gun violence reduction program and the transit police that are also being cut, so totaling $14 million. So add in the 5 that you're going to get out of some magic deficit hat, and that should be at least 19, very minimum. Mayor Wheeler, as am I, we're white, we're privileged, and he, in an article the other day, admitted that his white privilege has blinded him to the need for action. I asked you, commissioners, to ask him how he arrived at that embarrassingly low number of 12 million. Commissioners Udaly and Fritz, what will you do to do better than that? Yesterday, we heard from hundreds of people demanding the same thing. When your citizens have spoken with such a loud and united voice, how can you not listen? Now is the time for you to listen. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sean, just for the record, it sounded like a bunch of maneuvering earlier when we were reading amendments. I actually effectively withdrew my budget amendment in favor of a different one.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I think it's good to look at that 12 million and decide why was that the initial number. But thank you for your motions.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony. Carla, next person, please.
I'm sorry, Joycelyn McCauley.
Welcome, Jocelyn. You're on. And you're still muted. There you go.
Hello, my name is Maria Cahill. Jocelyn McCauley yielded this time to me. I live in Portland. Today, I speak on behalf of Pacific Northwest Family Circle, a multiracial group of families where I support families whose loved ones were murdered by police. Police hardly ever stop violent crimes. They don't solve many either. Policing is inherently racist and ableist. By ableist, I mean that Portland police assume that people are mentally and physically able to follow their commands. When someone can't, they are often abused or killed. Over 170 people of every race have been killed by police in Portland since 1992. That's about 6 people a year. According to Dan Handelman of Portland Cop Watch, that average has somehow gone up in recent years. In 100% of those murders by police, officers were either not punished or didn't stay punished. The reason that officers think they can kill people with impunity and immunity is because until 2 weeks ago, they could. When someone is murdered by police in Portland, you, city councilors, must take responsibility for funding the police. Just in the last 2 weeks, 2 more people were killed by police in Portland. Knowing what you know today about policing, are you willing to take responsibility for funding the government-sponsored murder of at least 4 more people before the year is over? We are encouraged by the call of POLF in Unite Oregon to cut the police budget by $50 million. We support reallocation of this money to community-led efforts, but we are not satisfied with the $50 million cut to the police budget. And neither is Donna Hayes, grandmother of lost loved one Quantis Hayes. She says we can't stop this uprising until the federal laws change. We need upward pressure from local governments. Federal laws grant police officers their qualified immunity at the local level. You must use your political connections and power to protect us. Defund the Portland Police Bureau and then keep going.
Thank you for your perspective, Jocelyn. Carla, next individual, please.
The next group is Edith Gillis, Kwa Young, and Anna Swanson.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, you're good to go, Edith.
So I wholeheartedly agree with PALF. If you're not going to have the complete abolition, which I prefer, I also want to have us outline that anyone of any agency or any nation, public or private, individual or as a group, outlaw the use in city limits of tear gas CS and of the LRAD, the electromagnetic pulse weapons, the microwave weapons, and the rubber bullets. I want you to outlaw the use of riot cops or riot police for crowd control or for interference with freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. I want us to also have a law that anyone using any items of riot gear must, within city limits, must have that riot gear, every item showing clearly from designated places in white reflective tape, the last name and or the ID. So on the top of the helmet, it's 1 inch, the ID, front of the visor, 1 inch, the ID, front of the shield, 3 inch last name, chest and back, 3 inch last name, 2 inches last name, shoulders, outer arm, 1 inch ID number, back of the hand, ID number and last name, 1 inch, front of the knee, back of the knee, ID 1 inch outside the boot or the gaiter, 4 inches from the end of the baton or stick, the ID number, on the end of any muzzles longer than 3 inches, having the ID number in white reflective. So this can be seen from all angles and we can know who is using it. This would be hook and loop like Velcro, the soft on the outside and the hook facing towards the object or the clothing, so that people can know who did that and they're held responsible. I also want to make sure that each person who is
time is up,
is going to be insured privately for liability insurance.
Thanks, Edith. Appreciate it. Next person, please.
Anna Swanson.
Hi, Anna.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool. Hi, my name is Anna Swanson. I'm a white, queer, and trans person who produces many drag shows in Portland. I'm also known as Captain ACAB in drag. I was looking forward to speaking yesterday and saying you're welcome on behalf of the LGBTQIA community to Chloe Daly and the whole City Council for apparently improving everyone's quality of life in Portland. If you have the audacity to make a pride proclamation and claim that you understand the history of Stonewall, a deeply abolitionist history born out of the leadership and rage of Black, trans, houseless femmes, and sex workers, you must be prepared to improve the quality of life of our most marginalized community members by fully disbanding and defunding the Portland Police Bureau. As a white queer drag performer, I can't let myself celebrate Pride if I'm not making it a riot to abolish the violence of policing and a fight in deep solidarity with my Black neighbors. You do not get to use the word pride if you are not prepared to fulfill the legacy of Pride's origins and abolish policing in Portland. I would also like to congratulate Care Not Cops, Don't Shoot Portland, Teresa Rayford and her tireless work on the gang enforcement team audits, student organizers for No SROs, and the many other activists and organizers who are on the streets in so many ways for finally getting y'all to eliminate the gun violence reduction team, school resource officers, and transit cops. That is people power, and you are rightly forced to move with it. But the amendments on the table are not enough. Care Not Cops is demanding that you go further. In solidarity with Care Not Cops, I am demanding that within the 2020-2021 fiscal year budget cycle, you reduce the Portland Police Bureau budget by at least $50 million. And each year going forward, continue decreasing the PPP budget by at least $50 million. You can also do more right now if you want to. With the leadership of Black Visions Collective and Reclaim the Block, the Minneapolis City Council has shown us that it is absolutely possible to begin disbanding a police bureau. In Portland, Care Not Cops has made it clear how you can do this with our demands. The only way to stop police violence is to defund and disband the police, so fucking do it. I yield my time.
Thank you. Just a reminder to everybody, we have an FCC license. We don't want to lose it. We want to be able to keep broadcasting. Next person, please, Carla.
The next three will be Francine Neville, Kwa Jiang, and Katie Sambat.
Welcome, Francine.
Hi, my name is Francine Neville, and I live in the Foster Powell neighborhood. I'm a former civil rights attorney, and when I practiced law, I represented labor unions and people who had been killed or injured by police, jail, or prison staff. I cannot count the number of Portland Police Bureau abuses that I saw in my work. I support the demands of Unite Oregon and PALF to defund and dismantle the PPP. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Kwa Jiang.
Good afternoon. I hope you all can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you. Welcome.
Great. Hello, Mayor Wheeler, Commissioner Hardesty, Commissioner Fritz, and Commissioner Daly. My name is Kua Zhang, and I am here on behalf of Asian Pacific American Network of Oregon to express our strong support for the demands led by Portland African American Leadership Forum, Action Fund, and Unite Oregon to immediately defund the Portland Police Bureau by $50 million, with targeted cuts to reduce harms to our communities, especially Black Portlanders. The Portland Police Bureau has failed to fulfill their stated purpose of creating community safety and instead has endangered Portlanders, creating widespread distrust. Like many people have said yesterday and today, reforms have not worked, and it's time to commit to Black lives by shifting our public resources into approaches to safety that value these lives. Along with these partners, we ask that you defund special units with particularly harmful impacts, including the transit police and the gun violence reduction team, both of which overcriminalize Black Portlanders, and also defund the special emergency reaction team. We also ask that you divest Portland's cannabis tax funds from the police budget and invest these into funds into the community harmed by the war on drugs. All funds divested from the Portland Police Bureau must be invested into Black, Indigenous, communities of color, and houseless communities. Our current system is fundamentally broken. It's time to reimagine our approach and invest in the futures and well-being of Black Portlanders. This will require creating economic, social, and health wellness with a community-centered health and safety model that is developed in partnership with impact communities, changes that will benefit all Portlanders. I urge especially Commissioner Fritz, who has been silent, and Mayor Wheeler to support amendments to the budget brought forth by Commissioner Hardesty's office and supported by Commissioner Daly to adopt the proposals of PALF and Unite, including a cut of $50 million from the Portland Police budget. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kua. And I always vote for the amendments I second. Next person, please, Carla.
It's Katie Sombat.
Hey, Katie, welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear. You're good to go.
Wonderful. My name is Katie Sombat, and I live in the King neighborhood of Northeast Portland. I stand with PALF, Unite Oregon, Don't Shoot Portland, and Cares Not Cops in their demands for defunding the police. I want to see the money divested from PPP towards resources such as housing, food security, income support, transit, education, childcare, and dignified health services, especially in Portland's BIPOC community. I would like to see the cannabis tax funds divested from PPP budget and invest them in social services, as well as underserved BIPOC communities. Defunding the police will not end racist policing, but it's the first step towards removing some of the power and presence they wield against Black members of our community. What we get in return by investing in social services is proper care for community members most in need. Those who are unhoused or in poverty, those who are struggling with addiction or mental health and trauma, better schools, and safer streets. Issues that are facing overwhelmingly by our communities of color due in no small part to racist policing. As elected officials, you are supposed to have our interests in mind when making decisions that will affect our community, state, and nation. You have received hundreds of testimonies, and we are shouting for change. Do not tread water anymore, but rather make a big splash. I want to echo a previous community member yesterday. We claim to be a progressive sanctuary city. Let's do just that. Listen to us. Make those changes. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Appreciate your testimony.
The next three will be Oak Auger, Catherine Agnew, and Emily Call.
Well, somebody's having more fun than I am. All right, Oak, you're up.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear. You're good to go.
All right, I want to thank you for taking the time to hear my testimony today. I'm going to keep it short. What I have to say has been said by many others. I just want to say the last 2 weeks have laid bare a fact that has been known to many Portlanders for a very long time. The Portland Police Bureau is not serving the people, and it is certainly not worthy of a $240 million investment. Now is the time for Portland to continue being the progressive city that it claims to be, and for you, City Council, to be brave and to take what you've heard in these testimonies to heart, and to take $50 million away from the Portland Police Bureau, if not more. Thank you, and I yield my time.
Thank you, Oak.
Catherine Agnew.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Catherine. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Catherine Agnew. I'm a resident of Southeast Portland. Others today and yesterday have already spoken up much more effectively than I can about the importance of abolishing the Portland Police Bureau, and I join them in demanding an immediate reduction in PPP's budget of $50 million as a minimal first step toward abolition. But specifically, I want to today urge the council to make serious cuts to the police and their budget amendments today, not delay for further study or cynically wait for public attention to die down. Right now is a time when an unprecedented number of people are finally paying attention to the role of the police. And if you actually want to see public attention to that, to see citizens engaged in finding alternatives to the police state, now is the best moment in recent history to launch this experiment. We already know that police are ineffective at the very best and mostly violent and cruel. There's no point to continuing to fund a bureau that hurts Portland's people. Why delay on making a real change, at the very minimum, cutting the budget by $50 million? Finally, as a person, I want to extend my sympathies to Mayor Wheeler on the loss of his mother. As a citizen, however, I demand he resign after a pathetic response to just protests in Portland that waffled between morally spineless and a bloody crackdown. If the four of you can't handle offering a real response to unprecedented civic outcry and participation from Portlanders begging you to defund the police, you have no right to claim to represent us. I yield my time.
Thanks for your perspective. Next, please.
Is Emily Call?
Yep, Emily's here. I see her. Hi, Emily. You can unmute. You're still muted, Emily, down in the lower left-hand corner of your screen if you're on a computer. And if you're on the phone, it might require you to push *6 on the keypad. Let's go on to the next person while Emily's working that out. Hang on, Emily, and try a couple of different things, and we'll come back to you.
Nicole Robinson.
Nicole, are you on board? Nicole,
yeah,
there you go.
We're here.
You're good to go.
Hi, I'm Nicole Robinson. You want to introduce yourself?
You're fine. We can hear you.
I'm here with Lamar Wright. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon. My name is Lamar Wright.
Hi, Lamar.
Good afternoon.
Hi. I want to thank the commissioners and the mayor for the pledges that they've made to remove school officers, to take the cannabis tax away from the police, to get rid of the gang enforcement unit and the transit police. This is not enough. I don't think 50 million is enough. The things that you've already pledged to do should have happened years ago. The new chief Lovell, he's been a part of a lot of community-based policing programs. I don't think any of these programs have a place in law enforcement. I support programs like Cahoots and mobile social services, not law enforcement responding to mental health calls. The behavioral health unit did make a difference, but if you don't know to ask for the behavioral health unit, you could just get any cop. And I'm working as a caregiver, which is great. I get to support a lot of activists, but I want to work in mental health, and I don't support institutionalization. And so I am really limited in what jobs I can do. I would love to be a first responder for mental health crises. And even if I went and got my master's degree, I couldn't hope to make as much as a cop does in Portland at the entry-level position. Fund caring, defund the police. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next person is Emily Call.
Hi, Emily. Can we unmute you now? It's still not unmuting, Carla.
Okay, let's go Chelsea Reed.
Wait, Emily, are you there?
Hi, this is Emily.
Oh, good. You're good to go. We hear you.
Hi, sorry about that.
No worries.
My name is Emily Call, and I've been a Portland resident for the last 25 years. I grew up in this city and have a deep love for the creativity and passion of its residents. But with these things also comes the heavy acknowledgement that our city has a long and painful history of systemic racism and discrimination within the community. We cannot be in denial about this any longer, and it is time for our city to reaffirm its commitment to racial justice in the Black community, with a commitment from City Council to immediately divest a minimum of $50 million and $50 million each year following from the Portland Police Bureau budget until it is completely disbanded. PPB is an organization that has disproportionately harmed the Black community. With that excess $50 million, we could start paying reparations to all Black Portlanders, especially those who have been targeted by gang policing, police violence, and the war on drugs. Portland could also invest those funds into other social services like free healthcare, stable housing, and food security for the Black and brown community, to be determined by local groups like Don't Shoot Portland. I'm also calling for an immediate end of the use of police responders to health, mental health, and wellness checks, and to instead implement alternative responders that are highly trained and not led by or contingent on interactions with the police, such as Portland Street Response. Additionally, I believe it is imperative that we divest Portland cannabis tax funds from the Portland Police Bureau budget and channel those funds into reparations for the Black community, which was unfairly targeted for activities that are now deemed legal during the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Sorry about the technical difficulties getting you on. Next individual, please.
Next group will be Chelsea Reedy, Kay Horichi, and Johanna Brenner.
Welcome, Chelsea.
Oops, sorry.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can, Chelsea.
Oh, excellent. Hi, I am Chelsea Reedy. I am a white, queer, cis woman born in Portland. I currently live in downtown, close enough to the heart of the protests to hear the helicopters and flashbangs every night being deployed by the PPB over the past 2 weeks. The city and the state are built on racial injustice against BIPOC, and the police in this country are an ugly legacy of that injustice. And there's no reforming a system that was built on injustice like that. So I support local Black leaders and their call to defund the Portland Police Bureau. And I support Commissioner Udally's plan to begin that defunding by removing $50 million from their budget. The money we give to the city with our taxes, it's the lifeblood of the city. It is meant to improve our communities. And what the police are doing right now doesn't make any of us feel safer. Quite the opposite. And that is it. And I will yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Appreciate your perspective. Next person, please, Carla.
Is Kay Horiuchi?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Kay, they then pronouns. I'm a trans person of color representing UWU, a queer trans BIPOC artist collective. I work in Chinatown, where I often witness police brutality toward Black, queer, and houseless people. On behalf of our community, I demand a complete defunding of the Portland Police Bureau. I demand you to reinvest in empathetic care for Black, Indigenous, houseless, and disability communities, not based on violence. Police misconduct reports in US, there's been over 22,000 cases of excessive force use, over 3,000 cases of rape, child molestation, and sexual misconduct, especially toward women of color. Only 10% get investigated. No accountability there. In the past 2 weeks, you've allowed the PPB to use a war crime chemical weapon on our own people during deadly respiratory pandemic. Shame on you. What is a nation that does not serve the most vulnerable? What is a state that murders its own people? What is a city without empathy toward its own community? What is a leader that allows state terrorism in collaboration with the white supremacists? Tear gas steady, if you want empathy toward your loss, and yet you can't feel the pain and trauma of the victims of police brutality, then suck my dick and choke on it too. You are a war criminal and you don't deserve to be part of our community. All cops are bastards. Quit your job. I yield my time.
Next is Joanna Brenner.
Thank you. My name is Johanna Brenner. I am Professor Emerita of Sociology at Portland State University and a member of the Portland Police Reform Network. I want to thank Commissioner Hardesty and Udally for your proposals, although they are not far-reaching enough, and I support all the arguments that have been made from PALF and Unite Oregon that a $50 million cut is necessary and possible. In addition to cutting the specific units that have been proposed today, it is possible to extract significant resources from the police to be redirected to community needs by cutting the number of people employed by the Bureau. I understand that there are concerns that such a cut will lead to layoffs among law enforcement. The budget can be significantly cut without layoffs because the total number of officers can be reduced by not filling the 107 existing vacancies and not replacing officers who are slated to retire this summer and then in January 2021. The number of retirements is expected to be quite large. Since the police often justify their budget by stoking fear of crime, I want to point out that these cuts in staffing are reasonable in light of the long-term decline in violent and other crime in the Portland metro area, not to mention that community investment is the best way to reduce crime. In closing, I've submitted a longer testimony via email, but just in closing, I want to mention and talk to Commissioner Fritz. You've long been concerned about the issues that people have raised yesterday and today. You are the leader who created the Office of Equity and Inclusion. And now you have an opportunity to extend that legacy by reimagining public safety, removing resources from the police, and putting them into our communities. I want to thank all of the commissioners for listening to the testimony from the community for so many hours yesterday and today. And I wish that you had been able to act on what we have suggested. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next three are Simona Bearcub, Virginia Ulrich, and Michael Sproles.
Welcome, Simona. You're muted. There you go.
Hello. My name is Simona Bearcup. I belong to Fort Peck, Assiniboine and Sioux tribes. I'm a sitting member of Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women USA. I'm here to give testimony to my experience with the conduct of Portland Police Bureau during my domestic violence situation. In April, my 2 adult children came to visit, and I made 5 to 6 calls for assistance in 1 month period. My initial calls for assistance were because my sons were smoking marijuana and creating an unsafe environment for my 15-year-old daughter. The officers' responses were that they couldn't do anything. Each time the officers arrived, they caused moral harm. I was being held hostage in my own home, and in the last 3 calls, I was literally begging for my life. May 18th,
I'm sorry, Simone, your voice is no longer, we can no longer hear you.
Simone, are you muted?
can you not hear me?
Yeah, now we can. You cut out for some reason. I'm not sure what happened. We heard you up to the point where you said your life was threatened, and then you cut out.
Oh, okay. Well, I was begging for my life, and then May 18th, my 18-year-old attempted suicide. An ambulance and officer were dispatched, and he was patted down before entering the ambulance. He was able to check himself out of the hospital hours later. May 28th, my son launched a picture at my head. I again called for assistance. The presence of glass was still present when the officers arrived, but they left me to fight for my life once again. That night, I slept with a dresser barricaded against my bedroom door and mace under my pillow. On the 29th, my 18-year-old busted through my door, which led to a struggle over the mace. Once again, the police refused to assist me, and the Indigenous community stepped in. I find this, they stepped in and gave my sons a hotel room. June 3rd, I got out. I found out that they were in my home. They had broken in. This time, my son choked me, and again, the officers left, and the Indigenous community stepped in. I find it extremely hypocritical that these events took place right on the heels of the city signing the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women Proclamation. For those who aren't familiar, the proclamation states, the lasting effects of colonization and history of oppressive policies directly correlates with the rise of violence against Indigenous women and girls. The disappearances and murders of Indigenous women and girls is directly connected to domestic and other forms of violence, sexual assault, trafficking, and history of childhood and intergenerational and historical trauma. These acts of violence and corresponding oversight, neglect of government law enforcement is a continued form of genocide and is a direct threat to tribal sovereignty. On May 6th, this proclamation was signed. In light of what I shared with you, this proclamation is looking like nothing more than theatrics. I ask you to put your money where your signature is, Mr. Wheeler. What I needed in this situation was a domestic violence de-escalation team, trauma-informed officers, someone who has knowledge of historical and intergenerational trauma, someone with cultural sensitivity training, not sending an officer who had been on duty all night. Instead, I received victim shaming, dismissal of my fears, complaints from the police that they were exhausted and that their lack of sleep was more important than my safety, and dismissal at my request for a domestic violence advocate to be present. Thank you.
Simona, this is Commissioner Hardesty. Do you have the name of the officers who showed up at your house?
I got every card.
If you would be kind enough to share that information with my office, we would love to follow up with you.
Thank you.
And let me just say, I am sorry that you called for help and you did not get the help you needed at that time. It sounds outrageous, the story that you're telling, and I am happy to follow up with you to find out what we can do to hold those officers accountable for not protecting and serving when you need it the most. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Virginia Ulrich.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Virginia, you're good to go.
My name is Virginia Ulrich. This is primarily for you, Mr. Wheeler, because I keep hearing you default to white fragility and defensiveness. The way you paused the end of the last press conference to say what you did, we all know this is a hard problem, but saying it would have been done already if it was easy makes people who are hurting feel dismissed. It is gaslighting. I will never forget the day I learned the lesson that I was part of the problem if I stood by in silence. A police officer started harassing someone walking in the front of our house. Harassing turned to beating. I watched my dad intervene. I had never seen my dad that angry. In the aftermath, my parents made it very clear that what I witnessed was wrong. I was 5 or 6. I understood it was wrong. My parents also made it very clear that to witness such wrong and do nothing is more wrong. I was a child and I understood. And yet, there was a time when I also played into the idea that somehow having police was better than not. I now get to sit and continue to sit with my own stupidity. But the key is to stop clinging to a system that clearly isn't working. Stop hiding behind hollow gestures that will not solve for the underlying root cause. Check your privilege. Stop caving to the sunk cost fallacy that leads to wanting to preserve something so broken and accept that reforms are not good enough. Stop telling the community you are trying to keep them safe when members of the community have made it very clear they do not feel safe. It's time to defund and disband the PPB and start over. Immediately reduce the budget by at least $50 million and reallocate those funds to more meaningful investment into the community. You already know the demands from Don't Shoot PDX, Care Not Cops, and others. Stop making excuses and do the right thing, not just in your vote, but in how you carry yourself, in what you say, in what you do from this moment forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia.
Next is Michael Sproles.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Loud and clear.
All right, y'all can hear me? I'm Michael Sproles with the Movement for a Labor Party of Oregon, the Portland chapter, and today we have 8 demands that we're issuing to City Council. 1, an immediate end to police brutality and repression. 2, demilitarization of the Portland Police Bureau. 3, prosecution of officers Sean McKenzie, James Dewey, Andrew Hurst, Jeffrey Livingstone, James Dufresne, Ryan Foote, Cody Byrne, Andrew Polis, Chris Burley, Ronald Forshaw, Rick Bean, Kenneth Reynolds, Scott McCollister, Kai Ho, Daryl Shaw, Mark Friedman, Jeffrey Bell, and Samson Ajir for the murders of Jason Washington, Quanice Hayes, Patrick Kimmins, Keaton Otis, Aaron Campbell, Kendra James, Vernon Allen, Jose Santos Mejia Puch, and Terrell Johnson. 4, investigation and prosecution of all police officers, as well as private security company Pacific Patrol Services, involved in the repression of the people's civil and human rights during demonstrations against police brutality. 5, amnesty and freedom for all those arrested at demonstrations against police brutality. 6, complete the exit of the Portland Police Bureau from the Joint Terrorism Task Force by ending all collaboration between the Portland Police Bureau and federal so-called counter-terrorist operations. 7, demand the closure of the Oregon Titan Fusion Center with a public release of all the names of the fusion liaison officers in Oregon and the destruction of all information obtained through surveillance and infiltration operations. 8, reject attempts to use the popular demand of defunding the police as a pretext for replacing police functions with private security corporations and or the National Guard. The MLPO in Portland calls on the broad masses of the people to fight for their democratic and civil rights, for the end of abuse and repression by the police, and to see to it that these demands are achieved by any means necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Next individual, please, Carla.
The next group will be Kim Menig, Caleb Berthold, and Lana Finley.
Hi, Kim.
Hi, my name's Kim Menig, and I'm a Northeast Portland resident. To echo the powerful and very consistent testimony yesterday and today, we are counting on City Council for a more drastic and immediate defunding of the Portland Police than the Council proposals offered so far. With that in mind, I support the full set of demands put forth by Unite Oregon and PULF that includes reducing PPB's budget by at least $50 million for fiscal year 2021. Thank you, and I yield my time.
Thank you, Kim.
Next, Caleb Bergthold.
Welcome, Caleb. Good afternoon.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Hi, I emailed in my testimony, so I want to keep this short. I'm a white cishet male and a combat vet with multiple deployments, and with all my privilege, I'm afraid of the Portland Police. I've seen far more violence from the Portland Police in the last 2 weeks than I have in 6 months in a combat zone. I fully support Unite Oregon, Care Not Cops, Don't Shoot PDX, and all Portlanders calling for the immediate reduction of the Portland Police budget by at least $50 million and all the other demands of the citizens of Portland. I yield my time.
Thank you, Caleb. Appreciate it.
Lana Finley.
Hi, Lana.
Hi, thanks for having me speak. I own a condo downtown. I serve on 2 boards in Portland. I'm active on the equity and inclusion committees for Portland Center Stage and for the Portland Art Museum. I also serve as the only board member on the Art Museum's staff equity and inclusion team. And I wanted to just take a minute to state clearly and for the record that I support the demands of PALF and Unite Oregon. And I agree that we should begin the process of divesting from and disbanding the Portland Police Bureau, reducing that budget by about $50 million a year until a new non-fear and punishment-based public safety alternative had been instituted. And I did send in my testimony, so I'll just cut to the chase and say my understanding is that I just received an email only moments ago that says, if you all decide to vote to approve the current budget as it is today, that the community is prepared to push back and that we will continue to push until full disbandment of the police because the proposed amendments are not enough. And so I yield my time now to the BIPOC community.
Thanks, Lana, for your perspective.
The next 3 will be Christopher Howell, Brian King, and Matt Cardoza.
Welcome, Christopher.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. I would just like to start by calling for a little bit more leadership from the council. This is not my first city council meeting, and it has, Ted Wheeler, I think you caused a very interesting thing by not being here yesterday. People couldn't yell at you, and so they uniformly lined up to call for defunding the police. I have heard no one on the side of the police here, literally nobody. And as such, I'd like to say cutting the police budget by 3% or even 5% when the rest of the city's budget has been cut by 5.6% does not show initiative. The $50 million that's being asked for is a great start, but things are negotiations. Commissioner Udaley's response to the idea, the only emotional response I've seen from you, or certainly the most emotional response, was to the idea of lowering the number of traffic police, which, fine. If you want to support that, find cuts elsewhere. I want to see a $100 million proposition so that we can have a negotiation that leads to something that people might accept. And I recognize this is hard, as you said, Ted Wheeler, so perhaps the right answer here is to pass a continuing budget month by month, week by week, whatever you got to do, get the lawyer. Don't just kick this ball down the road for another year. Commissioner Fritz and Mayor Wheeler, I think these are both of your last few months in office. You could get statues built to you in this city by committing to defunding the police, but I don't think that's how it's going to go. Commissioner Udaley, I'm very disappointed to see your reaction to the idea of cutting traffic police who are absolutely responsible for racism in their policing. Many things that have gone wrong have begun with a traffic stop, but you don't come with a proposal to cut money from anywhere else. And finally, actually addressing that moment, I'd like to say, Commissioner Hardesty, I appreciate your response to Commissioner Udaley and to pointing out that the police are going to have to find places to cut. Like Every other place, my kids' school is talking about cuts. Every year they talk about cuts. It's time to cut from the police. And the entire community has told you today and yesterday uniformly what is wanted. So let's get some real leadership. Let's have some negotiation. Let's also end the police union. Commissioner Hardesty, I'd like to thank you again for your leadership in, for example, pointing out the embarrassment clause.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christopher.
Next is Brian King.
Hey, Brian.
Hi, good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Brian King. I'm a Portland resident and a member of the Portland DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America. I'm testifying for myself today. Defund and disband the Portland Police Bureau. It is an unreformable, occupying paramilitary that is a threat to life and to democracy. I lived in Bangkok, Thailand on and off during the years when it turned from a constitutional monarchy toward a military dictatorship. During that time, I saw many peaceful protests for democratic rights. In May 2010, the military deployed snipers to rooftops around the demonstrators, declared them to be terrorists, massacred them, and established their junta. So I found it chilling when in August 2018, Portland police hid for a month that they had allowed a right-wing militia to have a cache of long guns on a parking garage overlooking anti-fascist protests. President Trump threatens to declare many in the George Floyd demonstrations to be terrorists, and he has deployed federal police and the National Guard around the country to police protests. If Trump's orders result in firing on demonstrators he calls terrorists, of course he'll be supported by the Portland police, whose union leadership calls Portland a cesspool. Commissioners, do you respect Portland? It is unacceptable that people who view Portland as filth to be cleansed are paid by the city to carry guns. And we should not accept the threat of a paramilitary in the city. Vote to disband Portland Police Bureau while you still have a vote to cast. I yield my time.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Brian.
Matt Cardoza.
Hello, my name is Matt Cardoza. I want to be as brief as possible. I'm adding my voice to the mass of people calling for you to work with community organizers in the unequivocal defunding of the police. And I agree with all those saying that we have a historical responsibility to stop at nothing short of the total abolition of policing and incarceration in all forms. I support calls to cut $50 million from the police budget, but I want more. We need a commitment to disbanding the PPB outright and concrete steps working towards that end. I have to say that I'm extremely disappointed that not a single city leader has made any kind of commitment to dismantling the police, something your constituents are crying out for. Additionally, I echo demands for the immediate firing of all police officers who have brutalized journalists covering recent protests. Also, Mayor Wheeler, I'm sorry for your loss and you have my condolences. However, I have to insist that you have proven yourself not to be the person we need to lead us forward. I think extending to the police 40 hours of paid time off to grieve the police murders of Black people is exactly the kind of decision-making that has shown us we can't depend on you. Please endorse Teresa Rayford as a write-in candidate for mayor and step aside. I ask you all, listen to the people you claim to represent. We do not need empty platitudes and liberal reforms. We need abolition now. I yield my time.
Thank you, Matt, for your perspective. Appreciate it.
The next three will be Caroline Moore, Kayla Stolte, and Paul Aarons.
Welcome.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you're good.
Hi there. My name is Caroline Rose Moore. I was raised, still live, and work in Southeast Portland. I work for the Portland public school system, and I agree with their decision to end regular police presence in public schools. In my work and student experience at PPS, I can tell you that the PPB is not a positive influence. My work in the special education system aims to help students who are targeted by the PPS reform system and the police involved in it. The fear, trauma, and humiliation experienced by Portland students at the hand of the Portland Police Bureau and school resource officers has been apparent for too long. In 2006, our new police chief, Charles Lovell, was involved in a civil rights lawsuit while serving as a school resource officer, a position in which he described having positive relationships with students. Lovell was involved in this suit because he put a 15-year-old girl in a chokehold. This behavior does not foster positive relationships with students. Sorry, Ted, you must have missed that detail when you were scrambling to find a POC scapegoat for your fascist agenda. Furthermore, in 2017, the PPB shot and killed Quanice Hayes, who was only 17 years old. Officer Hurst was not charged with this murder, and Ted Wheeler did not withdraw that decision. We have not forgotten this. This is not justice. These are not the ideals or presence we want in our public schools or our community. I demand the budget for the Portland Police Bureau is completely eliminated within this year. I echo the demands made yesterday and today to defund specific departments and for you to call for your resignation. I demand for these funds to be reallocated to learning programs for Black and Brown youth, as well as Head Start and early intervention programs associated with Portland Public Schools that help the community. The fear, trauma, and humiliation experienced by too many at the hands of the Portland Police Bureau should be enough for these demands to be met. Instead of investing in a police state, invest in teachers, counselors, food banks, public housing, early intervention programs. When you invest in your community, there is nowhere to go but up. Begin defunding the Portland Police Department now. I have one more statement for Ted Wheeler. When you become defensive towards the press, asking you the same questions you've heard before, please ask yourself why you're hearing them again. Perhaps your first answer was not sufficient. We will not be silenced. You are a war criminal, and we will continue to demand your resignation. Fuck the police and fuck you, Ted Wheeler.
Next is Kayla Stolte.
Hi, my name is Kayla Stolte, and I'm hoping to add the voice of some of the Black and Brown students that I teach to this council meeting. I live in Northeast Portland, and as a high school teacher in Portland Public Schools, I'm calling for complete divestment from and disbanding of the Portland Police Bureau. As a teacher, over the course of the last few weeks, as the school year wrapped up, I should have been celebrating my students and all they've accomplished this school year. I should have been at prom and graduation, track meets, and assemblies, sharing their unhindered joy. Instead, I was in my apartment, speaking into the void of distance learning. And at the start of my precious hour, the only one I get with students now instead of our usual 3+ per week, I did a check-in. Last week, I linked them to a feelings wheel. It lists a bunch of different emotions, and I gave them some time to look it over. I had them choose 1 or 2 words to describe what you've been experiencing this week. And one by one, they unmuted their mics. Revolted, anxious, inferior, disgusted, panic, scared, worried, isolated, helpless, and hopeless. They weren't talking about the pandemic. They weren't talking about protests. No, they were talking about the police. The only way to stop the violence of police in the city is to defund and disband the Portland Police Bureau. As Commissioner Fritz and Mayor Wheeler, please commit to severing all ties between police and schools. Commit to eliminating police presence in our historically Black neighborhoods. Commit to never vote for a police budget increase again. Please commit to protecting our youth with the community care they deserve. Use the police budget to invest in housing, food security, education, and childcare. We know the safest communities are the ones with the most resources, so please invest in ours. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Caleb.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, if I may.
Commissioner Hardesty.
I'm going to really ask our community to please not use words that will make us lose our ability to communicate with the public. We are not trying to tone police anyone, but when you use words that the FCC has declared that we will have to pay either a significant fine or we will lose the ability to communicate via this kind of form. Please, I know you're mad. I know tensions are high, but if we could just please refrain from using language that you would not use in front of your grandmother or your grandchild, I would be greatly appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Carla, next individual, please.
Paul Arns.
Hello.
Hi, Paul.
My name is Paul Arns. I'm a white male living in Northeast Portland. I stand with my fellow community members, BIPOC community, Black leaders all over the city calling for the defunding of police so we can reinvest this money into our communities and true community services. I'll defer to their demands since they know where the money should go and how it should be spent. I appreciate Commissioner Hardesty for you noting that it is white voices who have called for more policing in the past, and my lack of opposition to that is inexcusable. A racist policing is reprehensible now, just as it was then. Incremental reforms are not enough. Now is the time for transformational change. Commissioners, I beg you not to disappoint your constituents and disillusion them by approving the budget as proposed and amended. It is not enough. We need to do more. Defunding the police is just the start, and I ask the commissioners to also address the systemic racism across all city bureaus and all policies. I was planning to yield the rest of my time to the BIPOC community, but I feel that it is a joke because whenever we yield our time, you then cut off BIPOC voices after their 2 minutes are up. They should have the chance to finish their testimony and continue to tell their stories. Demand that you listen to everyone who's on the call today and not cut off their testimony. Thank you for everyone who has shared their stories today and yesterday. I hope that you will continue to listen to the people. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Paul.
The next three are Maddie Herman, Finn DeJextra, and Alexa Graham.
And Carla, after Maddie, could we get a check, please, a list check?
Yes.
Thanks. Maddie, you're good to go.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Maddie Herman. Commissioner Hardesty, I want to thank you for your statement at the end of the session yesterday. It has taken me and many white people in this city years to catch up to what you and so many people of color have known for so long, that the police are not here to serve Black, Indigenous, or people of color. Because of this, and as the city of Minneapolis's attempts at reform have shown us, reform will never be enough. I'm here to voice my support for PALF and all the others, demanding that you reduce the Portland Police Bureau budget by at the very least, 50 million starting now, and that each year hereafter you continue to decrease the budget by at least 50 million, with the end goal of the PPB be completely disbanded. We must use all of that money to directly fund Black-led community-supported groups, including groups that specifically support Black, transgender, and Black disabled individuals. Ted Wheeler, I know you withdrew it, but your previous proposal to divert only $7 million from the Police Bureau to support communities of color is less than 3% of the money currently slated to go toward the PPB. It was a performative gesture meant to pacify the calls for reform, and we need to do better. In closing, I support the defunding and complete disbandment of the PPB. Decreasing the PPB budget by 50 million now is only the start, and it's the very least that Ted Wheeler and the white members of City Council can do for this community if they want to support more than just fellow white people. Thank you. I yield the remainder of my time.
Thanks for your perspective, Maddie. Appreciate it.
Mayor, we show about 26 more people.
26. That's good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Next is Finn DeJextra. Finn.
Finn, are you able to unmute? Let's go to the next person while Finn works it. Finn, sometimes *6 on the keypad works. And if you're on a computer, lower left corner, if you take your cursor down there, you might be able to unmute. Let's move on to the next person while Finn sorts it.
Alexa Graham.
Welcome, Alexa.
Hi, Ted. Can everyone hear me?
Loud and clear.
Great. So I want to make good use of this 2 minutes. I'm going to start off that I'm not going to spend time berating the mayor for lack of better words, because I know that there's plenty more of that to come. I am a Black trans woman. I live in Southwest Portland, and I've lived in the area for about 5 years. I have to say, I am extremely disappointed with the violence that Mayor Wheeler has sanctioned against people of color, particularly the Black community being over-policed. While I understand and respect with the utmost honor, Joanne Hardesty, defending Mayor Wheeler. I have to say that he is not deserving of this. And I just want to say personally to you, Ted, your violence is not unseen and it does not go unnoticed by the Black community. So in summation, I am petitioning to have the police defunded by a minimum, and this is a minimum, not 50 million, not 100 million, but by 50%. And the reallocation of those funds towards the Black community that has been over-policed, that has been marginalized, and thanks, of course, to our current mayor, has been further impacted with violence. So, Ted, when I conclude this, I'd like you to ask yourself this question. What will people think of me once I resign? Fuck you, Ted Wheeler.
I don't know what the bell is, but it happened at exactly the right time. Carl, the next individual, please.
That's my new timer.
A good timer. I like it. I approve it.
Looks like we lost. Oh, Finn's there. I'm not sure. We'll try Finn.
Can you unmute now?
Yes.
All right, Finn, you're good to go.
Hello, my name is Finn Dykstra. I'm a white non-binary resident of Northeast Portland, and today I implore you in your greatest capacity to choose to be on the right side of history and to choose to begin to drastically defund and ultimately disband the Portland Police Bureau. Choose to stop them from ending another Black life. Choose to stop allowing unlawful and violent force be used against another peaceful protester. You hold this power, and I demand that you use it today. This means defunding the PPB by at least 50% this year and at least 50% each year hereafter. A former police officer of 10 years recently wrote an article published on Medium and widely circulated this week, and quote, "When I was doing my best work as a cop, I was doing mediocre work as a therapist or a social worker," end quote. And I think this is central to the point. The funds currently allocated to the PPB need to be taken away and reallocated towards programs and professionals who will actually help our community instead of harming them. We know that well over 90% of calls answered by our police occur well after a crime has taken place. We know that we need not be policed by a militarized force, and it is not enough to try to shift to a so-called community policing model or any other type of reform. It's time to defund and disband the police. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Finn. Appreciate it.
Next three are Brandon Farley, Marissa Katz, and Lisa Chem.
Brandon, you're good to go.
Good afternoon. My name is Brandon Farley. You could call me Portland's most infamous videographer. First of all, Mayor Ted Wheeler, I want to express how sorry I am to hear about the passing of your mother, and to see you interacting with this community today really shows your level of commitment to the city. But what I wanted to come on here today to discuss was the fact that I was brutally assaulted by a Portland police officer on the night of June 4th, 2020. And it is 7 days since the attack, and I still cannot walk. There's bruising all over my leg, and I'm suing the city of Portland for $950,000 as a wake-up call. I want more people to speak out against the use of rubber bullets, knowing that they are not non-lethal, that they do have a tendency to kill people. We've seen imagery from the news showing that journalists' eye sockets have been obliterated by these things. I was only 5 feet away when the police decided to use this against me. I was filming peacefully. I had not broken any laws, was pushed into the line of fire by Antifa. And much like last year, June 29th, they didn't have Andy No's back. This year, they didn't have my back. I really think it needs to change for peaceful journalists out there to have a safer environment to be able to film. And I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you for your perspective. Carla, next individual, please.
Sorry, next is Marissa Katz.
Hi, Marissa.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, you're good to go.
Hi, my name is Marissa Katz, and I live in Northeast Portland. I've lived in Portland for 10 years and worked with youth for the last 5 or more years. So many people before me have already said everything that needs to be said, but I just want to echo the demands and the statements of many others in the meeting before me today and yesterday, and the demands put forward by Unite Oregon, PALF, and Care Not Cops, and pay respect to the mountain of work done by Don't Shoot PDX. So many before me have already said today and yesterday, I demand that you reduce the police budget by at least 50 million, and that each year going forward, you continue to decrease by at least 50 million with the ultimate goal of defunding, disbanding, and abolishing the police. As many others have said before me, this is a doable task and one that takes courage and a commitment to imagining a new future that we all deserve, free from police violence. We need a complete reimagining of how we allocate city resources, and to de-invest from police and invest in community-determined resources. I also demand that police immediately stop policing protests, as many before me have said. They've continually brought the violence night after night here in Portland using tear gas at exorbitant amounts, which is banned by the Geneva Convention. Why is it a war crime when used in war, but not on the citizens of Portland? In addition to everything else it does, tear gas is an abortifacient and simulates what Plan B does to the body. I've heard reports from people around the country who have experienced early periods and intense menstrual cramps in the aftermath of being tear gassed. This is unacceptable. I demand the end to the shameful use of tear gas by the PPB. Lastly, I just want to bring attention to some of the cops that the city of Portland has not removed from the force who have murdered Portlanders. Portland officer Andrew Hurst murdered Quanice Hayes in 2017. He is still on the force. PPB officer Ronald Frazier murdered Aaron Marcel Campbell in 2010. He is still on the force. PPB officer Jason Sterry murdered James Jahar Perez in 2004. He is now on the Beaverton force training other officers. PPB officer Scott McCollister murdered Kendra James in 2003. He is still on the force. It's vital that we not only hold these police accountable, but that we be bold and walk towards a future without police. I just have one sentence left, in which these murders cannot happen. So many voices before me are joined together, and I have not heard from even one person in the hundreds of public testimony that is in favor of the current budget or in favor of an increase. I ask that you listen to your constituents and remember who voted you in. Thank you.
Thank you, Marissa. Appreciate it.
Lisa Chim.
Hey, Lisa.
Hi, my name is Lisa Chim. I am a descendant of immigrants. I am a Vietnamese, queer, and non-binary identifying person and was born and raised in Portland, Oregon. And I stand with the Black Lives Matter movement. I have a testimony that I will send to you, but instead choose to give my remaining time to my friend who's over the phone, Javon Wheeler.
How you guys doing? My name is Javon Wheeler. I'm a heterosexual Black male, about to be 25, and I recently have been in contact with Superintendent Guadalupe Guerrero, and he was just letting me know that the city is in control of the $1.2 million that was going to be given to Portland PD, that Portland Public Schools actually pulled from their budget. And I really want to make sure that that money is delivered directly to the Black community, not minorities, since this was taken out of protest from George Floyd. I think a lot of times Black people are lumped into minorities, and America has not atoned for the injustices that have happened specifically to Black males, Black women, Black individuals, Black people as a race. And we need different programs. We need economic inclusion. Economic inclusion comes in the form of different programs that are really geared to help Black business. Most Black people work, over 95% of us have to work with people who are not Black employers. And that creates a whole nother set of issues and microaggressions that get taken out on us. We will never be able to escape this police brutality if economic inclusion is not a priority. I would have further demands as far as economic inclusion, but we'll get to that later. At first, I really want to just focus on the 1.2 million and make sure that goes to programs like SEI and other Black communities.
We yield the rest of our time.
Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Lisa, you can do the rest of it.
I have Kezia Black, Rebecca Wilkins, and Allison Rose.
Welcome, Kezia.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we sure can. You're good to go.
Hi, my name is Keziah. I was born and raised on the stolen indigenous land we call the Portland metro area. I work as an educator in Portland in the greater Multnomah County. I'm here in support of disbanding and eradicating the Portland Police Bureau, reallocating that budget and resources to Black and Indigenous-led community programs. Programs that are already here with knowledge and ability to lead us in our new, brighter, unpoliced future. As a child of a mentally ill single mother and a ward of the court from ages 3 to 18, I can personally attest to how a family is hurt by the so-called criminal justice system and personal interactions with the police. I can personally attest to how a family would benefit from fully funded, fully inclusive, holistic, and lifelong community services. Services completely divested from the police and its systems. My mother should not have been arrested when experiencing episodes of schizophrenia. She should not have sought a jail sentence in hopes of a dry bed when experiencing houselessness. And my white mother's Black counterparts and other counterparts of color should not be killed for seeking the same help, murdered when helping their communities, and murdered for merely existing while Black. I personally am left to simply imagine what my life could have been like if me and my family had been given these life-affirming, community-oriented services. I'm asking you, our elected officials, to not leave the members of our community to simply just imagine what their life could have been. Give them a safe reality. Lastly, I would like to give my condolences to each family who has lost their loved ones to police violence. Those whose loved ones did not go peacefully, those whose loved ones did not get to be surrounded by their family members giving them thanks in their last moments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kazak. Appreciate it.
Rebecca Wilkins.
Hi, Rebecca.
Good afternoon, commissioners and mayor.
Welcome.
My name is Rebecca Wilkins. I live in the South Tabor neighborhood, and I've been living in Portland for nearly a decade now. I'm involved in community outreach, and I would like to voice my concerns about the proposed budget for the 20 to 21 fiscal year, the ongoing renegotiation of the contract with the local Portland Police Union. The substantial amount set aside for the PPP budget is unacceptable because we are pouring our city's resources into this money pit that gives its citizens no return on investment, all while money from the PPA union PAC continues to line the pockets of elected officials and anyone that will strengthen their grip. So I demand that you immediately stop the expansion of the PPP budget by ending all budget increases. I demand that you end PPB's relationship to the federal 1033 program, which feeds into the military-industrial complex that rips at the fabric of our nation. $246 million being funneled into the PPB could instead be turned into harm reduction and community nourishment programs. This money needs to be going into holistic resources for Portland's community. The police do not stand with the people, as we have seen so clearly. The contract with the PPA is up for renewal, and I understand that there have been negotiations underway. Thank you for that, Joanne Hardesty. PPA leader Daryl Turner has been outspoken about his disdain for the city and has identified his position as being in opposition to the citizens he supposedly serves. It is past time to take this city back from this for-profit industry of violence, a toxic fraternity that is resistant to redress. We need an independent civilian agency holding authority over cases involving deadly force. We need to make it easier to fire police officers who have used excessive force or exhibited racism, which the city already has the authority to do under Article 2.1 of the current PPA contract. These are demands that have already been brought to you, and I implore you to do what is right by your people. I demand accountability from the city council members to uphold the wishes of the majority of those that have spoken here. Thank you for your time. Chief Lavelle puts little girls in chokeholds. All cops are bastards. I see my...
Thank you. And just a reminder, folks, we're taking 2 hours of testimony. We started our testimony at about 2:25, so we've got about a half hour more for testimony. So obviously we won't get through everybody. So the quicker people can be in terms of getting to their point, the more folks we can hear from. Next individual, please, Carla.
Allison Rose.
Yate. My name is Allison Rose. I am Diné or Navajo, and I'm born for the Kadak tribe. I live in Northeast Portland, and I work for the City of Portland Bureau of Environmental Services and the PSU Food Pantry, and I speak for myself today. I'm advocating for the complete divestment and disbanding of the Portland Police Bureau in solidarity with PALF, Care Not Cops, Don't Shoot PDX, and many more organizations. The community is demanding City Council to reduce the PPP budget by at least $50 million and continue to decrease the budget for PPP every year by at least $50 million. The incremental changes provided are not enough, and by keeping a system inundated with white supremacy, we are jeopardizing BIPOC lives. As a brown Indigenous woman, I have had terrifying moments with law enforcement, but none so much as our Black community members. This brutality has traumatized our Black communities, and the violence from PPB against protesters has continued to re-traumatize these communities. So Ted Wheeler, when you tweeted that the violence we saw on Friday evening protests nearly 2 weeks ago does not represent our Portland, I want you and the rest of council to know that tagging and looting is nothing compared to what BIPOC communities have faced since first contact with colonizers. Portland and Oregon at large is historically a white supremacist haven, and the disproportionate violence against our Black and other communities of color proves that this is still that haven. This was never our Portland. This is the unceded land of the Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Clackamas, bands of the Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Malala, and many other indigenous peoples. This ancestral land has been tainted by the brutality of the Portland Police Bureau and the continued protection of their violence by city officials offering reform and accountability. There's no accountability for an already racist system. So again, I'm demanding the city of Portland to defund and disband the Portland Police Bureau. Invest in Black, Indigenous, and communities of color by directing the funding towards community-determined resources and reparations. When you invest in community resources, you invest in Black lives. When you invest in police, you invest in their deaths. Thank you, Commissioners Hardesty, Udalي, Fritz, and Mayor Wheeler for listening to our testimonies today.
Thank you, Allison. We appreciate your being here.
The next three are Destiny Houston, Belize Neshemwe, and Andrea Bacox.
Destiny, welcome.
Hi, my name is Destiny Houston. I'm an African-American woman, excuse me, born and raised in Portland, Oregon. Mayor Wheeler, you stated that you had to admit that this was a reckoning. Can everyone hear me? I'm not sure.
Reckoning. We can hear you loudly and clearly.
A reckoning looks like using the full power and authority of your respective offices to reallocate funds from the Portland Police Department to organizations such as the Oregon Innocence Project to immediately review cases of all BIPOC persons in prison for violent crimes. If found innocent, that funds are directed to release them immediately into mortgage-free homes, eco-friendly cars, and at least $1,000 per month over and above food and other services. It looks like urging Kate Brown to reconsider the release of 2,836 individuals identified for early release due to COVID-19 and reallocating funds to place these individuals in housing and support them with $1,000 per month over and above other services. In lieu of completely abolishing the police, which is the reckoning the people demand, immediately create a task force to review policing policies that allow for the murder of Black lives and replace them with policies that do not allow for killing, beating, or brutalizing people being taken into custody for any reason. Cease and desist all traffic stops, replace police with flashing activated signs and photo enforcement cameras. Immediately direct funds to a task force that will identify and terminate racist police officers. Redirect funds to retrain police officers on being anti-racist by funding workshops led by Jane Elliott or facilitators using her methodology. Funding to train true peace officers to become experts in conflict resolution and de-escalation. They should function like firefighters. We should feel as safe with those that protect and service as we do with firefighters. Immediately forgive all DMV violations that are disproportionately the burden of people of color. Create a fund to provide car insurance and car maintenance for low-income individuals. The DMV should be responsible for everything to do with motor vehicles. Funds could be reallocated so that notification letters are triggered by community members that send out notices to drivers that contain a voucher to receive free replacements if taillights and headlights are need replacement. Traffic stops are not about safety, they are about terrorizing Black lives. Build tiny houses and communities for my houseless neighbors, regardless of their possible addiction issues, mental health status, or past criminal records. Provide them the services they themselves want. Getting treatment should not be a prerequisite to housing. Representative, since Mr. Lavelle will be speaking later, I simply want to say that it is insulting that you assert that it is the budget cuts which forced the PPB to combine 3 districts into 1 as the reason for the public mistrust. Stop killing Black people. Stop terrorizing protesters. Black voices that do not support a Black Lives Matter agenda do not distract us. Black Lives Matter, I yield my time.
Thank you, Destiny. Next individual, please, Carla.
Is Belize Neshemwe.
Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My name is Belize Neshemwe, and I'm one of the 110 Black youth who signed an open letter to the mayor and city council to defund the police bureau. For many of the policies passed by the city, BIPOC communities have always been affected by them the most. When police are called to protect people, it is in the consequence of Black people and other people of color. Because often Black people are the thing everyone, including the city, won't explicitly state they want increased protection from. In this time of racial unrest, increased global health issues, and economic depression due to the loss of jobs caused by COVID-19, the Police Bureau should not be receiving over $236 million in funding if Portland's houselessness issue is at an increasing rate or as people struggle to pay their bills during quarantine. It is important that within the newly proposed reform by Mayor Wheeler around the police and communities of color, that the responsibility of reform is not solely held or focused on communities of color, but also within the Police Bureau. I believe, however, that you cannot reform a system that was built to protect white people at the expense of Black and brown lives. If you truly believe in a Portland that works for every person, then I urge you to divest more of the Police Bureau's funding towards the city's communities of color and the people that are currently financially suffering due to COVID-19. We, the 110 Black youth of Portland, sent the letter that we tag you, the mayor and commissioners in, and we labeled it urgent, listen to Black youth, and I urge you to take a look at it. And with that, I yield my time.
Elise, thank you very much for your testimony, and I appreciate your engagement on this. Thank you.
Next is Andrea Bacchus.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Andrea, we can hear you.
Thank you for your time, Council. My name is Andrea Bacchus, and I'm a white immigrant constituent in the majority minority neighborhood of Portsmouth. I commend you on the amendments that have been put forward so far, but we need to go further and we need to do it now. Now is not the time for baby steps. Past efforts at police reform have failed. This is your and our collective opportunity to advocate for the complete divestment from and disbanding of the Portland Police Bureau and to move instead to a system of community care. I've lived in countries where this is possible and proven to work. My personal experience with policing in Portland, however, has been extremely traumatizing on multiple occasions, including that of my brother, who was pepper sprayed while handcuffed, unable to tend to his own care. He suffered a panic attack in the back of a police car, and for the rest of his life is traumatized and fearful of the police. And he is one of the lucky ones. Our BIPOC citizens have died at the hands of the PPB. There is absolutely no correlation between more police and less crime. Spending more money on more cops or employing more officers simply does not lead to increased overall public safety. That has been proven. Instead, arrests go up, police shootings go up, police beatings go up. We need to allocate resources towards community-based drug and mental health treatment, the education system, and other social institutions that improve life outcomes for all, rather than arresting people on every corner. There's a fundamental misunderstanding between the police and public safety. Not only does more police not equal less crime, but studies have found that increased investment in law enforcement can actually harm public safety because it fuels a distrust of police, especially in historically over-policed communities. It actually makes people less likely to report crimes. This is our tax money. We fund this budget. We have a right to dictate what gets funded and what doesn't. It's time to acknowledge that PPB has a reputation as one of the most racist police forces in the country. Therefore, we demand your commitment immediately to remove $50 million from the PPB budget each year, starting with this one, until the entire Bureau is permanently disbanded, and to reinvest in programs unaffiliated with law enforcement. We demand that money be reinvested in community care and not reliant on the logic or practice of policing, surveillance, or incarceration. Invest in our priorities and needs as a community. The police do not make our communities safe. Police departments don't need more money. People do. Fund services for care, not cops. Black Lives Matter. Thank you, and I yield my time.
Thank you for testifying.
The next three are Olivia Putnam, Artur Grochowski, and Kathleen DeVera Tembrook.
Good idea.
Hello.
We hear you.
Okay. I just want to echo what everybody has said, say that I support it. I hope you listen to all the people, and I want to yield my time.
Thank you, Olivia. Appreciate that.
Next is Artur Grochowski.
Agreed. Thank you, Olivia. First of all, condolences, Mayor Wheeler. I hope you can find enough time to grieve. Dear Council, my name is Artur Grochowski, and I am a white architect working in Old Town Chinatown. I'd like to remind you about the immense gravity of this vote and of our next steps, especially as today's addendums of reallocating 6% of the police force budget indicates a lack of that realization. The mayor's email I received last night sabotaged the true intent for future change. It insultingly stated that the PPD for years has improved the equity and justness of their policing and cited 15 to 20 small changes and programs that fixed quirks in the system, to borrow Representative Bynum's phrase from this morning. The email did not know that we have the chance to change everything, that the budget and the union contract are both not yet signed, nor did it mention democratic community control over safety and justice, completely disbanding the PPB, or your roadblocks in enacting these actions. I fully support these radical moves and know that this vote is not about small issues of adding or removing bits of programs or fine-tuning policies. This vote is about basic human rights that I, Mayor Wheeler, and all other white males in this country already enjoy. It is about the right to not get funneled into an awful life based on your skin. It's about the right to not live in constant fear for your children's lives. And it is about so many other rights that I don't even know exist due to my privilege. Portland's Black community has the seeds of solutions and still cares enough to share them with us. And for once, they have the unilateral support of the white community. Trust them and plant their seeds, not just 6% of their seeds, but all of them, and then plant the 60,000 plus other seeds that are in your emails. Thank you for your time and hugely difficult work ahead.
Thank you, Arthur.
Kathleen DeVera Tembrock.
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler and council members, and good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Afternoon, yes, we can hear you.
My name is Kathleen DeVera Tembrock. I reside in the Goose Hollow neighborhood, and I'm a recent pediatric nurse practitioner and Doctor of Nursing Practice graduate at Oregon Health and Sciences University. I'm also a former pediatric nurse. I do not claim to represent the views of OHSU, but I'm here to exercise my right to free speech. I'm here to speak in favor for reducing the PPB budget by at least $50 million and ongoing defunding of the PPB for consecutive fiscal years. As a person of color who has been racially profiled by police officers, I can speak from personal experience of the childhood fears instilled while growing up in impoverished neighborhoods where police officers patrolled and targeted my fellow BIPOC neighbors and friends. This feeds into the cycle of trauma, violence, and oppression experienced by vulnerable minorities in their community. My professional endeavor lies in the promotion of health and wellness for children. I ask that instead a portion of the $50 million budget be reallocated towards uplifting BIPOC and marginalized communities by providing access to social services, educational support systems, and improving access to healthcare. Clinical rotations in locations such as the Multnomah County School Health-Based Centers provided a small window in understanding the underfunding and gaps of services provided to the BIPOC and impoverished communities in the Portland area. BIPOC communities are still getting the short end of the stick with resources. I'm here on behalf of Portland's BIPOC and medical community to advocate for abolishing police brutality, dismantling their abuse of power, and halting the integration of white supremacy, starting with our local community. We are living in a public health crisis. People need healthcare, mental health services, and social services for support, not policing from a militarized force. Defund the police, and most importantly, Black Lives Matter. Thank you for your time, Council.
Thank you, and thanks for your hard work during the pandemic. I know you guys have been working really hard up at OHSU, and thank you for that.
The next three are Surya Joshi, Ashley Oakley, and Travis Roberts.
Welcome, Surya. Surya, can you unmute?
I'm unmuted.
Why don't we, who is after Surya? Was it Ashley?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, let's go to Ashley first while we work out the technical problem with Surya, please. Go ahead, Ashley.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, council members. For the record, my name is Ashley Oakley, resident of Northeast Portland, Master of Social Work, and over 10 years experience in supporting organizations like the Native American Youth and Family Center, Self-Enhancement Incorporated, and the Coalition of Communities of Color. The foundation of our country, our state, and our city policing is racist, historically used to control people of color. This foundation is so outdated, it's rotten. Any sort of reframing, retraining, installation, or inspections we try to build on, they're not working. We need to defund the police and build a new foundation for our home, one built by the people of Portland with the values that we hold today, not with the racist values that Oregon was founded with. Personally, I've never felt protected or served by police in Portland, nor any city that I've ever lived in. I feel supported by community-based organizations, by a city that takes care of its people, not tear gasses them, and that listens to those who are calling out for justice. Thank you so much for your time. I yield the rest.
Thank you, Ashley. Carla, Surya, are you able to get on yet? Are we able to hear you? It might be, if you're on a computer, I can't tell from my screen, cursor to the lower left corner unmutes. And if you're on a phone, sometimes you have to push *6 on the keypad in order to be able to unmute. Try both of those things and see if that works. In the meanwhile, Carla, can we move on to the next person?
Travis Roberts.
Travis, you on board?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yep, sure can. Thank you.
I'll be brief. I want to echo the overwhelming majority of the statements that have been made so far, and I want to thank Councilwoman Hardesty for all of her hard work and courage. I just want to reiterate real quick that I find Mayor Wheeler's handling of this issue to be absolutely appalling. And I would encourage, by acknowledging first and foremost that no one person can fix everything, I want to encourage everybody listening to give a serious look at his opponent, Sarah Iannarone, and consider voting for her in the fall. Thank you.
Looks like Surya's unmuted now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Mayor, you were muted.
Thank you. Sorry. Hi, my name is Surya Doshi. I am a program coordinator for Economic Opportunity Program at ERCO. Thank you, Mayor Wheeler and Commissioner Mayor Wheeler. I would like to express my condolences to you and your family. And at this moment, since we've heard a lot of committee members about realignment of Portland Police Bureau's fund, I would like to share some of the opportunities that you have at this moment. I am part of different community organizations, ERCO, Black Parent Initiative, Human Solution, Southeast Works, El Programa Hispanol, Latino Network, Central City Concern, Constructing Hope, Oregon Tradeswomen, and many other community organizations. We work primarily for economic opportunity for a community of color and immigrants and refugees. And at this moment, when our communities are being suffering from the effect of COVID-19, this is the right time to reassess the funding that you provide for Prosper Portland's Economic Opportunity Program. This is the right time to invest in the community who will be or who are actually getting the worst effect of COVID-19, both in terms of the infection and also the economic result. And we have done a lot of trainings for the community who are working currently as a CNA, truck driver, different IT professionals. And then these are the communities of color who we are talking about at this moment, who are historically not getting benefit of both economic and also social benefit that this country should provide for them. And this is your opportunity. And I would like you to make sure that at this moment, the economic justice is also in your plan for the community who are affected by the situation that we're all talking about at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Surya. We appreciate your testimony. And we've got about 8 more minutes for testimony.
The next 3 are Donovan James, Sailor Winkleman, and Emery Mort.
Very good. Welcome.
Hey, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for letting us all speak. First off, I'm really happy to be here. My name is Donovan James. I'm the Financial Planning and Analysis Manager at the Oregon Food Bank and the Artistic Director of Missing Link Theater Company. I've lived in Portland for 8 years, currently reside in Northeast Portland. And I just want to say a couple of things. I'd like the use of chemical weapons, flashbangs, and rubber bullets should be ended immediately. I was tear gassed last Friday night while peacefully protesting at a Black Lives Matter protest. There's no reason for the Portland Police Bureau to use tear gas on its citizens. We are human beings. We do not deserve this. And we are the citizens you are elected to serve. The Portland Police Bureau has failed its social contract and must be completely defunded immediately. We pay taxes to support various institutions to maintain and promote a healthy society. If an institution we have created fails in its stated goals, if it engages in violent behavior against its citizens, we have the right to deconstruct it and create a different institution. It is with this social contract in mind that I urge the City Council to completely defund the Portland Police Bureau and redirect these funds to mental health, social services that improve and empower the community of Portland, especially the Black community of Portland. If the Portland Police Bureau cannot be completely defunded, $50 million should be cut from its budget. As an analyst, the PPB budget reeks of overblown government administrative costs. It is $246 million, which includes 700 police officers and many more positions that are administrative. I urge the council to commit to cutting $50 million of this budget and use an objective third-party agency to review the budget and find redundancies and positions to eliminate. This should be easy if you're truly committed to helping Portland and are opposed to propping up an inherently racist organization that actively harms the citizens it promises to protect. The PP budget should be invested in the community, into the citizens and people of Oregon that you all are serving. It should be used to empower and strengthen the lives of human beings in Portland. A better world and a better society are possible if we are innovative in our thinking and not burdened by the inertia of old traditions and bound by racist institutions. In closing, I support the demands of PALF and urge the city to defund the police budget by at least $50 million and to please ban all chemical weapons, sound weapons, and ammunitions of all kinds against its civilians. Thank you for your time.
Next is Sailor Winkleman.
Thank you, and welcome, Sailor.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we sure can.
Cool. Good afternoon. My name is Sailor Winkleman, and I am a white transgender person living in Southeast Portland on Cowlitz and Clackamas land. Over the last 2 days, you've heard from hundreds of Portlanders and their families, especially BIPOC and especially Black Portlanders, about their ongoing experiences of abuse by the Portland Police Bureau. People have been harassed, traumatized, and murdered by the PPB. When Portlanders stood up in droves against this violence, the PPB shot them, gassed them, and threw them in jail, all during the COVID-19 pandemic that is disproportionately killing Black Americans. In Minneapolis, the City Council pledged to disband the police department. They said it is clear that our existing system of policing and public safety is not keeping our communities safe. They said our efforts at incremental reform have failed, period. Portland's efforts to reform the PPB have failed, period. They're still terrorizing houseless people. They're still murdering Black people. They're still murdering people experiencing mental health crises. We must defund and dismantle the PPB and invest in community-led health and safety strategies. To do this, I support the PALF and Unite Oregon's demands to immediately reduce the PPB budget by $50 million for fiscal year 2021, to immediately stop policing protests, and to commit to never voting for a budget increase for the PPB. In addition, I urge the City Council not to renew the Portland Police Association's union contract. There's power in a union, and police abuse it. I yield the remainder of my time. Thank you.
Next is Emery Mort.
Emery, are you there? Emery, can you unmute?
Okay, here we go.
There you go.
Good afternoon. My name is Emery Mort. I use he, him pronouns representing Portland's resistance. We want to unequivocally back the calls, arguments, and sentiments from Black-led organizations and hundreds of public testimonies voiced in the last day and in the streets led by BIPOC peoples. In terms of what is politically possible right now in this budget, we strongly urge the council to adopt Commissioner Hardesty and Commissioner Udaley's amendments in full and move rapidly and assertively on disbanding PPB and dismantling PPA's ability to defend wanton police violence. I want to thank you. Most importantly, thanks to the people of Portland. And since there may be people waiting to need to be heard, I want to yield my time now, and I urge you to take 5 or 10 extra minutes to hear from the remaining testifiers. Thank you.
Thank you, Emery. And I think we can take a few more minutes. Let's go to 4:30, but we're going to have to cut it off at 4:30 so we can keep the quorum and still vote on the budget. And we have one item after the budget, after this particular issue. So we'll continue till 4:30, and then we'll have to cut off the testimony at that point. Next name, please, Carla.
The next 3 will be Patrick Liu, Lucas Littlefield, and Maggie Morris.
Very good.
So now is
we'll
Patrick.
We'll hear from those 3 individuals, and then I'm sorry for those who did not yet get a chance to testify, but we'll have to cut it off at that point.
Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Hi, my name is Patrick Loya. I'm a person of color, resident of St. John's, and a son of Oakland, California, who's lived through countless half measures and incremental failures designed to protect those who harm our communities. I'd like to read the names of our brothers and sisters who have been shot and killed by Portland police, but I only have 2 minutes. I'm aligned with the prison and police abolition movements and want to stand with all those calling to defund and disband the PPB, allow the PPA contract to expire, and create a climate for the so-called good apples to interview for a role in reimagining a racially just and peaceful system not rooted in coercion, punishment, and violence. That system includes reparations. I stand with the call to cut and not shift the Portland police budget by $50 million as a start to this work. I also want to humanize, acknowledge, and honor the grief that Ted Wheeler is feeling with the loss of a family member, but I also demand that he honors the grief of those who have lost their lives, their family members, and their civil liberties at the hand of this department with the explicit surrendering of the power that he wields. In the Oregonian announcing Ted Wheeler's tepid reform plans, it referenced, and I quote, he said his white privilege has blinded him to the need for action in the past and acknowledged he should have acted with greater urgency on the issues of police violence and systemic anti-Black racism. I want to reiterate and emphasize this point for the public testimony. Ted Wheeler, the Portland Police Commissioner, has admitted that he was unable to adequately ascertain specifically what needs to be changed, how quickly, and to what extent within the very department he leads. That deficiency has killed people. You don't get a pass, period. Resign. Conversely, Commissioner Hardesty said yesterday in her opening statement that she has lived and breathed this work for 30 years, and I trust her to stand authentically, but I also implore her to stand righteously and collectively with the people, above and beyond the amendments on the table now and in the future. I want her to know that if she stands up and stands alone, as she did in 2019 with these exact same people in the room, we will raise hell, we will remember, and we will take your damn jobs. In the name of transparency, representative democracy, and Black lives, I'm calling specifically for all our city commissioners and the Portland Police Commissioner to issue written statements on every single upcoming vote associated with the Portland Police budget. And I demand that if their vote isn't aligned with Commissioner Hardesty's, to explain why their experience and expertise should trump the decades of receipts Commissioner Hardesty has amassed and the voices of the living and the dead she is speaking on behalf of. Thank you.
Next is Lucas Littlefield.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Commissioners and Mayor Wheeler, for allowing us this time. I really do appreciate a platform to speak, and will do my best to present my ideas quickly. First of all, the reduction of the police budget by $50 million is the least you can do, and I absolutely am asking for that, along with every single other member who testified so far. Like another person mentioned, not one single person, and Mr. Wheeler, I hope, or Mayor Wheeler, I hope that you do take the time to go back and listen to all of that testimony that was presented yesterday. Not one person who has presented testimony yesterday or today has been in support of the current budget, and a strong majority have asked for the $50 million reduction at a minimum. I am originally from Idaho and moved out to Portland specifically to achieve an environment of more diversity, to have experiences that were not allotted to me in a very, very white state, Idaho. And since moving here, I honestly was taken aback at how not progressive Portland was, of how racism exists very much so in this state, and specifically in this city. The last point that I would like to make is that I've been attending I've been attending many demonstrations and protests throughout the last week and a half. I think of them as East Side and West Side protests, in that the West Side protests, those that happen downtown at the Justice Center and in the streets of downtown Southwest Portland, have been engaged with and dare I say attacked by Portland police many more than one time. Yet every single protest and demonstration that has taken place on the East Side, there has been little, if any, police presence at all, including helping with mitigating traffic and safety for the protesters. I know I'm close to my 2 minutes, so allow me to close in saying this. Mayor Wheeler, none of us think or in any way believe that you have an easy job here. We all do, very much so, understand it's a heavy burden, and we ask that you think as best you can about all of those involved and how the decisions that you make will affect not only them, but their children, grandchildren, and for years on. Again, thank you, Commissioners and Mayor Wheeler. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Lucas. Appreciate it. Thanks for your testimony. And Carla, was there one more person?
Yes, Maggie Morris.
Thank you. And then we're going to have to close the record after Maggie. Maggie, good afternoon.
Hello. I'm here to reiterate that the police system as a whole has specific racist beginnings and is completely beyond reform. We've tried that route and continue to see Black people killed and routinely traumatized by police. The only acceptable way forward is to defund PPB by $50 million this year and each following year until it's dismantled. This is not a budget issue, but a moral issue. Wheeler's initial proposal to cut funding to each bureau by 6% is disgraceful to our community. We need to fund the people that actually have the training to assist and uplift our communities instead of aggressively policing them, jailing them, and throwing them into the same situation again and again. While I'm here, I would like to publicly ask why Ted Wheeler was in violation of the campaign finance reform law that Portlanders voted for in 2018 and wonder, what is he hiding? Is he accepting funding from the police union or the police bureau in general? During this time, you have proven yourself untrustable and we are fed up. Portlanders are watching. I yield my time.
Thank you. And I see Robert raising his hand. He's probably going to object to my saying that the record will close. Is that correct, Robert?
Yes, that is fine to close the record. I had consulted with the budget director. The motions that have been made and seconded are appropriately on the table. There are associated with each of those motions some more detailed descriptions of how the budget will be amended. And I think it would be appropriate for the record if all of that detailed information is read by the maker of the motion.
Good, Robert, that's good advice. And what I would propose to my colleagues, first, we want to hear from Chief LaBelle. He'd asked to be able to speak at the close of public testimony. So we're going to give him that space next to speak. And then what I would propose is we would go through each of the amendments in the order for those amendments that were proposed and seconded, and we will give that more specific detail as required under state budget law. But I just propose we do that as we go through and then vote individually on each of these amendments. Does that square with my colleagues? I see Commissioner Hardesty is a yes. Commissioner Daly and Fritz, are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Commissioner Daly? when we get there, we'll confirm that it's okay with Commissioner Udaley. Chief Lavelle, welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Thanks for giving me some time this afternoon. I know it's been a long day. Good afternoon, all. I'm Chief Chuck Lavelle of the Portland Police Bureau. Thank you for allowing me to testify today during these historic and unprecedented times. The events over the last 2 weeks have brought the question of our criminal justice system's fairness, practices, and levels of accountability into the forefront of our society and communities across the country. I believe we can work together to find a new path for fair, equitable practices to keep our Portland streets safe. I'm committed to listening to the community and instituting change in the Portland Police Bureau. As an organization, we're committed to transforming the Police Bureau to educate and prepare officers for this new era in policing, a new time in our history that puts the community first. Once we learn City Council's decisions, we will realign to best meet the needs of the community and respond to priority calls for service. It's important to recognize all the people who work for the Portland Police Bureau who have dedicated their lives to serving others, their sons, daughters, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters. They're human beings who shop beside our community members in the grocery store, sit beside them in houses of worship, and face all the same challenges and joys life has to offer. They demonstrate care and compassion every day. The men and women of the Police Bureau are part of this community and are here to be part of the solution. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Chief. We appreciate your comments. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Congratulations. We appreciate it. So I hear from Commissioner Udaley. She is good with what was proposed. So we will go through each of these amendments in order. We'll just go through the same order we did before. We'll only raise those that were moved and seconded, and then we'll give the specific legal language, the specific budgetary language, and then I'll ask, is there any discussion or further commentary by commissioners on any of these items, and then we'll take the vote. So we'll go through each one of these amendments in that way. Does that square with you, Director Kennard? Thumbs up, good. All right, so the first amendment, the first set of amendments were mine. The first one was a motion to move the hearings office function and budget from the city auditor's office to the chief administrator's office within the Office of Management and Finance, and allocate $18,615 in general fund resources to the chief administrator's office, supporting the administrative workload associated with the hearings office. This motion reduces $641,733 of general fund discretionary and overhead resources, as well as $212,476 in interagency revenue, and reduces associated expenses, including 4 FTE from the auditor's office. The motion reallocates the original budgeted revenue, expense, and FTE to the chief administrator's office within the Office of Management and Finance, and increases the general fund discretionary and overhead revenue by a total of $18,615 to support the administrative workload associated with the new function. It allocates $8,487,000 of ongoing resources from the general fund unrestricted contingency and $10,128 of general fund overhead resources. This amends attachment B, C, and E as necessary. Any further discussion on this amendment? And just raise your hand if you have any further discussion. Doesn't look like it. Call the roll, please, Carla.
Hardesty?
Aye.
Udaley?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye, the amendment passes. Amendment 2, a motion to convert the Portland Parks and Recreation Sustainable Future position from limited term to permanent. This motion converts the 2-year limited term Sustainable Future position to permanent. Funding for the first 2 years of this position is supported by a transfer of $358,648 in one-time general fund discretionary resources. Existing resources to support this position on an ongoing basis have been identified within the Portland Parks and Recreation Finances Division's general fund allocation. This amends attachments B, C, and E as necessary. Any further discussion on this one? Seeing none, Carla, please call the roll.
Hardesty,
Aye.
Udaly,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye, the amendment passes. Commissioner Fritz, number 1, do you want to take it up? You're muted.
Yes, I know I was muted. I was trying to toggle back and forth between the Zoom screen and the other screen where I'm reading my thing. So
Sure.
here we are. The motion is to allocate $150,000 for a tribal liaison position in the Office of Government Relations with resources from reducing the Police Bureau budget. This motion increases ongoing general fund discretionary revenues by $68,389 and ongoing general fund overhead resources by $81,611 in the Office of Government Relations. These resources will add needed capacity for tribal relations. Sorry, there's a massive Peabot truck outside my window. These resources will need added capacity for tribal relations coordination, outreach, advice, and support for city offices and bureaus through 1 additional FTE. Programmatic funding will support delivery of the annual Tribal Nations Summit and other events, delegation visits to tribal governments in the region, attendance at recurring conferences of tribal government representatives, and gift exchanges consistent with cultural protocols. It allocates $68,389 in ongoing resources from general fund unrestricted contingency and $81,611 in general fund overhead resources. Amend attachments B, C, and E as necessary.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, please call the roll, Carla.
Hardesty,
Aye.
Udaly,
Aye.
Fritz,
I am really happy that we were able to fund this in my final budget. This is something that I've worked on for a long time, and I'm very happy that I have support. Thank you, colleagues. Aye.
Wheeler.
Commissioner Fritz, I want to thank you for your long-standing efforts around our tribal relations program. I don't think it's ever been as strong as it is right now, and making this position permanent further underscores the progress that's been made. I want to thank you for bringing this amendment. I'm very happy to support it. I vote aye. The amendment's approved. And then you have a second amendment.
Thank you. The motion is to add $123,885 for the Civil Rights Title VI program in the Office of Equity and Human Rights with resources from reducing the Police Bureau budget. This motion increases ongoing general fund discretion.
Fritz, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think the number, I want to make sure we get it right. Is it 123,885 or 985?
985. Sorry, I may have misspoken.
No worries. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Where was I at?
Just start with this motion again. Just start the program.
Okay. Right. The motion increases ongoing general fund discretionary revenues by $56,528 and ongoing general fund overhead resources by $67,457 in the Office of Equity and Human Rights. This funding will support a new FTE to act as a bridge between citywide policy and practice development and bureau-level implementation and technical assistance. To meet demand from bureaus and the community, the position is responsible for providing bureau and community technical assistance, supporting bureau implementation of related policy. I would not quite related policies, plans and initiatives, including developing supporting practices, developing training and building staff capacity, revitalizing the Bureau Civil Rights Coordinators Network, and assisting with accountability through data collection, tracking, evaluation, and reporting. Allocates $56,528 of ongoing resources from general fund unrestricted contingency and $67,457 of general fund overhead resources. Amend attachments B, C, and E as necessary.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, Carla, please call the roll.
Hardesty.
I am thrilled to support this. We're asking a lot from the Office of Equity and Human Rights, and it's really important that we provide them the resources so they can hold our bureaus accountable for the outcomes we seek. I'm happy to vote aye.
Udaly.
Aye.
Fritz.
Well, first of all, Carla, I have a whole new appreciation for the way you read all the ordinances each time. I had to channel my inner Carla to get through that the spiel, and that helped a lot, actually. And thank you, colleagues, for your support of this. It's this is something that we have to do. So it's again really gratifying that we're going to be able to do it, and I think it's very appropriate to use some of the reduction from the Police Bureau to fund this program. Aye.
Wheeler.
Happy to support. I vote aye. The amendment is adopted. And then Commissioner Daly, I believe the cannabis tax is yours. Item 4.
Sorry, scrolling. I just read it into the record?
Yes, please.
Okay. So motion to reduce $2,291,728 in ongoing recreational cannabis tax resources in the Police Bureau for the Traffic Division and direct the Bureau to support, oh wait, no, that's not.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, direct the Bureau to support the Traffic Division within its general fund allocation. Reduce 2 million, okay. Do I keep reading the whole thing?
Yeah, we have to get all.
Okay, sorry, it just seems repetitive.
Jessica won't let us out of budget jail unless we do it.
Okay, we only do this once a year, so I'm a little rusty. My apologies.
Commissioner, it's to make sure that those resources be allocated the way that.
Yes, I see. It just, yeah. So once again, reduce $2,291,728 in ongoing recreational cannabis tax resources in the Police Bureau. Balance the Police Bureau budget by reducing $2,291,728 in general fund backed external materials and services expenses. Allocate $453,000 in recreational cannabis tax resources to Civic Life to support the disbursement of social equity grants, and increase ongoing unrestricted contingency in the recreational cannabis tax fund by $1,838,728. Amend attachments B, C, D, and E as needed to reflect this change.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, Carla, please call the roll.
Hardesty.
I want to really appreciate Commissioner Daly. This has been a vein, I think, in our sides ever since we started receiving cannabis tax dollars. I am proud of the leadership that she has shown, and I am very happy to vote yes on this amendment.
Daly.
So as I've said many times over the years, I don't believe that we have adequately delivered on the promises we made to voters when they approved the cannabis tax. The Portland Police Bureau was receiving over $2 million of that tax every year, while Civic Life, the only bureau with a cannabis program that funds restorative justice community grants, has had to fight for a fraction of that every budget cycle. The Police Bureau uses their allocation of cannabis dollars to replace previous funding. This means that although they have received more money, they have not taken on any additional work or created capacity on their traffic team. Despite my frustrations with how PPB funds their traffic enforcement team, this isn't in any way a reflection on that team. It is a statement on cannabis dollars and who should be receiving revenue from a legal industry that was historically racistly policed. Allocating money to the PPB violates the spirit of restorative investments, particularly when we so meagerly fund our social equity grants. So I want to thank my colleagues for supporting this amendment. This will bring us to a total of $1 million annually for the social equity grants and allow us to do much deeper restorative justice work in the community that we previously just didn't have the funds for. And I vote aye.
Well,
How about me?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Fritz.
That's all right. It's been a long week, hasn't it?
Yes.
Happily, I'm not muted at all, so I can just butt in. So thank you for this motion. Thank you, Commissioner Udaly, for your commitment to the traffic division, which I share. And I'm glad to see that the motion does include that work will continue to be done, because clearly that's part of safety on our streets as well. I'm really happy that we have had this amount of money to allocate, and it's increasing, and that our community, the Cannabis Policy Oversight Team has been foundational in guiding where the money goes and what's done, particularly within first the Office of Neighborhood Involvement and now the Office of Civic Life, to make sure that it's directed to the right places. And so I will be looking to see, as the money continues to grow, what choices you'll make in continuing to make sure that it does the most good for the people who most need it. Aye.
Wheeler.
I want to thank Commissioner Udaly for her strong leadership on this amendment as well as others. She made a very clear and compelling case for this. I'm happy to support it. I vote aye. The amendment's adopted. Next up is Hardesty number 1.
Thank you, Mayor. Number 1, motion to reduce by $5,373,450. Let me start over. Motion to reduce by $5,373,451 in ongoing general fund resources and eliminate 38 FTE in the police bureaus related to the gun violence reduction team and the Metro Gang Task Force. Reduced by $5,373,451 in ongoing general fund resources and the police bureau for the gun violence reduction team, thereby dismantling the unit in both name and practice. Balance this reduction in Portland Police Bureau by eliminating 38 FTEs associated with the gun violence reduction team and Metro Gang Task Force, as well as associated materials and services expenses. Increase general fund contingency policy set aside by $4,800,000 on ongoing for the Portland Street Response Program, and increase ongoing general fund unrestricted contingency by $573,451. Amend attachments B, C, D, and E as needed to reflect this change.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further discussion on this amendment? Seeing none, Carla, please call the roll.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Udaly.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The amendment's adopted. Next one, please, Commissioner. Number 2.
Motion to reduce by $1,913,226 in ongoing general fund resources and eliminate 14 FTE vacant police officer positions in the Portland Police Bureau to fully eliminate the school resource officer program. Reduced by $1,913,226 in ongoing general fund resources in the Police Bureau for the School Resource Officer Program. Balance this reduction in Portland Police Bureau by eliminating 14 FTE associated with the program, as well as other personnel costs and associated materials and service expenses. Increase ongoing general fund unrestricted contingency by $913,226 and increase special appropriations by $1 million in ongoing general fund discretionary resources for a Black Youth Leadership Initiative. Amend attachments B, C, D, and E as needed to reflect this change.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further discussion on this amendment? Seeing none, Carla, please call the roll.
Hardesty.
I want to say that I am so excited about this particular amendment because what we tend to do at the city is talk to adults about what youth need. And this particular initiative will put young people, and I consider young people 25 and under, in the leadership role of determining how these resources are spent. I am also in the process of talking to foundations who have agreed to help us match these funds so that these young people will have the opportunity to chart their own course into the future. I am just giddy about this process, and I am very happy and honored to vote yes.
Daly.
Aye.
Fritz.
Well, this is doing exactly what the community asked us to do in removing the school resource officers and investing in education and youth leadership. So I commend Commissioner Hardesty for this approach and Mayor Wheeler for your support. Aye.
Wheeler.
I'm very excited about the youth component here, and there's tremendous potential. And we actually heard from some young people today during public testimony, and they absolutely could have an active role in this conversation and in helping us to imagine that future. So I am very happy to support this. I vote aye. The amendment's adopted. Amendment 3, please, Commissioner Hardesty.
Motion to reduce by $1,104,341 in ongoing general fund resources and eliminate F8 FTE associated with the Special Emergency Response Team, also known as CERT, and the Portland Police Bureau. Reduced by $1,104,341 in ongoing general fund resources and the Police Bureau for the Special Emergency Response Team program. Balance this reduction in Portland Police Bureau by eliminating 8 sworn FTE associated with the program, as well as the associated materials and service expenses. Balance this amendment by allocating $1 million in ongoing general fund resources to a contingency policy set aside for a participatory budgeting process with our houseless community, and increase ongoing general fund unrestricted contingency by $104,341. Amend attachments B, C, D, and E as needed to reflect this change.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further discussion on this amendment? Seeing none, Carla, please call the roll.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Daly.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The amendment's adopted. Last but not least, Commissioner Hardesty, Amendment 4, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Motion to reduce by $4,357,372 intergovernmental resources and eliminate 24 FTE associated with the Transit Police Unit and the Portland Police Bureau. Reduced by $4,357,372. I'm sorry, let me start over. Reduced by $4,357,372 in intergovernmental resources received from TriMet and in the intergovernmental agreement with TriMet for transit police services in a manner appropriate to this agreement. Balance this reduction in Portland Police Bureau by eliminating 24 FTE associated with the program, as well as associated materials and services expenses.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this amendment? Seeing none, Carla, you know what to do.
Hardesty.
I want to appreciate both the Mayor Wheeler, and Commissioner Daly early on stepping up and saying, yep, community wants this gone, and we have an obligation to make it happen. And so I am very happy to vote aye.
Daly.
Aye.
Fritz.
So the total of these 4 amendments led by Commissioner Hardesty, by my reckoning, is about $15 million and 84 positions. So although this doesn't go as far as the community has been asking us, it does make a significant difference. And I want to be supportive of Chief Lavelle to make sure he is set up for success. And I know that that's also Commissioner Hardesty and the Mayor's wish, and of course, Commissioner Daly's as well. Aye.
Wheeler.
As Commissioner Fritz just pointed out, it's not the 50, but it's not the 7. And the chief is committed to working with us and the community to get this right. I'm very happy to vote aye. The amendment's adopted. So colleagues, that leaves us with one last vote on this particular piece of the budget, and that is to vote for the budget as amended. And so with that, at this point, we will now vote to adopt the budget as amended. Any further discussion before we do so? Carla, please call the roll.
Hardesty,
I want to start by thanking the young people who have taken to the street every night for over 2 weeks. I want to thank you for elevating this conversation to the point where there was no doubt that we would act. I want you to know that though we have heard over and over again that the request was for a reduction of $50 million from the police budget, I will tell you that the actions that we are taking today will make sure that we have reduced the police budget by $27 million. That is significant. And I am absolutely, I know for sure that would have never happened without you taking to the street. I want you to know that ever since we started this conversation, my colleagues and I have been in deep conversation about where we can go. I also want to assure the community that the passing of budget is not the end of reform in the Portland Police Bureau. I have publicly said to Chief Lavelle, I will be there to help him make the reform that the community has demanded. It is important that as we move forward, that we keep our eye on the prize. For many years, I have believed that the only way for us to have community police officers is for community to be able to train our community police officers side by side with police officers. And so I will be working with the chief to totally revise how we recruit, how we train, and who we recruit to be police officers. We will also be totally revising the training program so that there will never be a training that does not include community, except for training having to do with weapons and automobiles. And so other than that, we're not just working on this at the city level. We know that at the state, at the Bureau of, at the Department of Public Safety Standard and Practices, that they also have to totally fire everybody who's there and start over, because we have people there that are there based on their seniority and the law enforcement agencies they've come from. And when the number 2 person has been found to falsely accuse someone from the African American community, it is absolutely critical that we totally strip everyone out of that bureau and start over. I've also recommended to the governor that she put in place the same components that I am proposing with Chief Lavelle, that there should never be a training for community police officers that does not include community as a core partner in the group. I have spent enough time at DPSST to know what we do today is we train people to train them as if we're training them to go to the military. We train them as if we're training them to go to war. And we will no longer allow our folks to be trained in a way that makes them us versus them mentality. We can no longer afford that. In addition to that, I want to be really clear. We must change how we hold police accountable. IPR, which is known as the Independent Police Review, has never worked. It's never worked for police. It's never worked for the community. And my plan is to work with the community to develop a truly independent oversight board that will include subpoena power and the resources to investigate police misconduct. You have given us a mandate to make radical changes happen. And my goal is to ask you, with the changes that we're making today, I need you, community, to be part of us reimagining what community safety looks like and who will be showing up when someone calls 911. We want everyone in the city of Portland to feel safe when they pick up the phone and call 911 and not have to guess whether or not the people that are coming out are people who are going to help them. I want to say to Chief Lavelle and the Portland police officers who are listening to us today, I want you to know that I look forward to working with officers who are committed to a community process and committed to making sure that they are treating each and every one of our community members with the respect and dignity that they deserve. And any officers, and I know I am very happy to work with officers who are part of the domestic violence unit who are superior when it comes to engaging community members who have suffered domestic violence. And so I do not want the police to see this as an indictment of all the men and women who work there, but I want them to see this as a call to action. Our community has demanded we act, and we can do nothing less. I am proud to vote aye for this budget. Thank you.
You Daly.
I want to start by saying how moved I've been by the uprising against police brutality around the world over the past 2 weeks, including the testimony we heard yesterday afternoon and today, by the outpouring of Portlanders showing solidarity with Black lives. As of today, my office has received 65,000 emails in favor of defunding the police and transforming community safety. This critical mass of outreach and the unequivocal support for defunding the Portland Police Bureau shows that there is a clear directive coming from the public. And we have an undeniable mandate to take bold steps to reduce the size and scope of the PPB and to reevaluate what community safety is in our city. So I want to thank all of you. I also want to thank my staff for their incredibly hard work with the community and other offices on these amendments. I know how passionate they are about these issues and how deeply personal they are for some of my team. So thank you as well. Every budget process I've been through since I took my seat in 2017 has come with unique challenges. And every budget I voted to support has involved compromise. Trade-offs are required when the five of us have competing priorities, different ideas about how to get to our shared values. The best you can seem to hope for is that the value of what you're able to advance outweighs the cost of what you concede on. There's an intense pressure to come to an agreement on the budget and the amendments and present a unified front. The hardest vote I've ever made was the vote to support the 2018 budget, when that budget included an increase in position authority for the Police Bureau. My regrets and frustrations were evident in my closing statement at the time and remain so now. I'm not new to the issues we're grappling with today. I've been politically involved for 30 years as an activist, as a radical bookseller, as a disability and housing advocate, and most recently as an elected representative for the city of Portland. You will find racial equity and racial justice at the heart of virtually every major policy I've advanced and in the work of my bureaus, from the fair access and renting policy to both code change and community safety through civic life, to prioritizing the least well-served communities through fixing our streets and Vision Zero investments. And this is not the first time I've spoken out on police violence. I've done it many times from the dais and in public and faced harsh rebukes for the audacity to question the authority of the Bureau, despite the fact I was elected by all of you to do just that. So I want to promise this won't be the last time either. I want to explain why I started this session on the verge of tears. My office has been working around the clock with my colleagues' offices to find a viable path forward that demonstrates we're receptive to our community's demands and that we will take a bold stand to defund and reshape the Portland Police Bureau. While I do support the amendments we made today, these are largely efforts community advocates have been demanding for years. They are low-hanging fruit, and I don't believe they go far enough. Portlanders are demanding a $50 million cut as we fundamentally change our approach towards community safety. It became clear to me immediately prior to council this afternoon that my colleagues could not be convinced to support my amendment to cut additional positions from the Bureau, which would have been an additional $5 million savings. This moment demands bold action, and I knew coming into this meeting that we weren't going to truly rise to that challenge. I'm gonna keep fighting for you, Portland. I will fight for you in the fall bump. I will fight for you and against racism at every level of government. But today, I cannot support this budget. You deserve better. We all deserve better. I know many Portlanders are going to be disappointed by what has happened here today, myself included, but I want you to take heart that you've been heard. And although this isn't the outcome we wanted, it is progress, and our work to dismantling racist systems, structures, and public policy has only just begun. I want to make it clear once again, I support these amendments. This vote in no way suggests that I don't, but I can't swallow another bitter budget pill in good conscience. I vote no.
Fritz.
Oh, this year's budget has been one of the most challenging and the most moving processes I've been a part of during my 12 years on the council. Thank you, Jessica Kinnard and your team in the City Budget Office for your nimble response to assist the council in navigating the budget changes associated with two public health crises, the acute one of COVID-19 and the ongoing chronic one of systemic racism. I vote today in support of Commissioner Hardesty's amendments, which are informed by her decades of advocacy work and are responsive to the concerns the community has shared regarding policing, specifically our Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. I appreciate Mayor Wheeler's affirmation of the amendments and his courage in continuing to work during this difficult time for his family. I vote today to recognize and elevate the Portland African American Leadership Forums and Unite Oregon's recommendations. I listened to your helpful input at our meeting yesterday, and now I am voting to begin implementing your action plan. Thank you for your leadership in our community and your guidance to me. Yesterday's hearing and today's votes center on new approaches to public safety, so that the term will mean safety for the most vulnerable and historically oppressed communities in Portland, as well as for those of us with white privilege. I support our new police chief, Lavelle, in leading the process of redefining what community safety looks like. For the remainder of my term, I am committed to continuing to uplift the voices and needs of Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities, the LGBTQ+ community, people experiencing mental illness, and people with disabilities. I will work alongside you towards a government that is inclusive of your needs and experiences. The time is now to rethink how we keep our community safe. The time is now to put our money where our mouth is and dedicate more resources to supporting the health, safety, and economic prosperity of our Black and Indigenous communities. The time is now to begin dismantling the systems and structures that are in our way as we move forward towards achieving a more equitable and just society. After this budget vote, we must forge ahead with the same determination we've seen over the past 2 weeks. As we begin to work to implement the changes adopted today, my colleagues and I will be engaged in additional efforts to be responsive to demonstrators and advocates, specifically in the police contract bargaining and in advocacy at the state capitol to support legislation that is necessary to make statewide and local police accountability possible. As the law stands today, the City of Portland doesn't have the authority to change practices we agree are abhorrent. The people of the People of Color Caucus, who are 9 legislators of color out of 90, will be leading the push at the state level. Even if you know your representative and senator are on board with the necessary changes, please contact your legislators to encourage bold, swift action. Guiding the council through these efforts and everything we do is the shared responsibility to ask over and over again how our decisions affect the root cause of the problem and whether the communities we aim to lift up are better off because of these decisions. I appreciate my colleagues' support for my amendments today, directing additional resources for the Tribal Liaison Program and the Office of Equity and Human Rights Program on Civil Rights, Title VI. And I'm grateful that the Mayor and Council supported funding for the new accountability and reporting position at the Office of Equity in previous votes. Dr. Markeisha Smith has demonstrated her strong, insightful leadership and will continue to guide all city staff, including me. My staff and I will continue to elevate the work of our city bureaus and the efforts of city employees who are centering their programs and practices on racial equity and social justice outcomes. We know that policing is but a single piece of a much larger system of oppression, felt most acutely by the Black community, Indigenous community, and communities of color in Portland and across our country. Change starts from within. My staff and I are committed to acting on policy that fosters belonging for those who have been intentionally left out and oppressed for centuries. Some Portlanders are struggling to understand why we are making reductions in the Police Bureau. Some of the 65,000 emails and hundreds of phone calls to our offices are from people opposing cuts in the Portland Police budget. To those folks, I ask you to hear and consider that interactions with police officers have caused individual and collective harm and trauma, as so many people in our community have testified. We also know that policing is experienced differently in some neighborhoods and in some communities. I invite you to consider and keep an open mind as to what a new public safety model could offer, not only to Black Portlanders, but to all Portlanders. I acknowledge that as a white person and city leader, my experience, my burdens, and my grief are not the same as that of my Black colleagues and Black Portlanders. Yet my response in policy and in supporting justice and community healing joins a collective one. I stand with Black community members here in Portland and nationwide and proudly join my colleagues on council, Mayor Wheeler, Commissioner Hardesty, and Commissioner Daly, in saying, I hear you, I see you, and the time is now to take the important steps directed by this budget. Aye.
Wheeler.
Thank you, colleagues. I'm privileged to be mayor and I'm privileged to serve on this council with all of you. I think we all agree these are extraordinary times. Progress in racial justice has been too slow for too long, but today it's accelerating. I'm proud of the difficult but necessary conversations that we've had together. And I'm proud of community leaders and the council for leading the way with both unity and partnership. As you know, this year's budget process took 2 dramatic turns. First, a global pandemic that created what we anticipate to be an approximately $75 million loss in city revenues. But thanks to our leadership as a city, smart financial planning over the last few years, and working together with our employees and our labor partners, we will close almost 90% of the gap today, and we're on a trajectory to balance it all together in the fall. As has been said many times, a budget is a moral document. Where we put our money shows where our values are. That's why I prioritize the following in my budget: climate action, the most vulnerable amongst us, especially our houseless, Portland's communities of color, and our public parks. Second, a long overdue nationwide reckoning about the racism in America's criminal justice system. So we adapted. We reshaped this budget to respond to the calls that we heard by reprioritizing funds away from the Police Bureau and investing them in our community directly. Our job as elected leaders is to listen, to understand, and to respond with urgency to the needs of our community. Voices in our community have strong and differing opinions about how this all looks, but our strength is in our shared values: respect for one another, seeking justice, seeking restorative justice, creating opportunities for our communities of color to thrive and lift up the most vulnerable amongst us. We are learning, we are changing, and we are growing together. The road ahead is long and it will be challenging, but we're starting with a shared vision and a collective commitment. I have faith in the power of community wisdom to work through the difficult questions that lie ahead with us. And I have great hope for the future of our city. I want to thank all of the community partners who've helped shape this budget we have today. I want to thank Director Jessica Kennard and her entire team. I want to thank my staff for their hard work. I want to thank my council colleagues for their leadership and their partnership throughout. I would, of course, vote yes ordinarily to support this budget, but for procedural reasons and the purpose of reconsideration, because this is an emergency ordinance, I'm going to vote no. The motion fails. Colleagues, I would like to move a motion of reconsideration. Can I get a second?
Second.
I have a motion on the table for reconsideration. Commissioner Hardesty seconds. Carla, please call the roll on the motion for reconsideration.
Hardesty,
Aye.
Udaly,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The motion for reconsideration passes. Colleagues, I'd like to put a motion on the table to remove the emergency clause from this ordinance. Can I get a second?
Second. Second.
We have a motion and a second from Commissioner Fritz. Please call the roll on the motion to remove the emergency clause.
Hardesty,
Aye.
Udaly,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. So this is effectively a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading as amended. Robert or Jessica, is there anything else on this particular ordinance that we need to consider?
No.
Yeah, not from my end.
Very good. So Jessica, we have one more, Director Kennard, we have one more item for today. Can you please walk us through it?
That's right. The final item for today is to adopt the tax levy ordinance. So this action includes the levy amounts for property taxes accruing to the general fund, the Children's Investment Fund, and the Fire and Police Disability and Retirement Fund. It also includes property tax levies for general obligation bonded debt and 15 urban renewal areas. Mayor, I will turn it over to you to call for public testimony on the ordinance.
Very good. Carla, is there anybody signed up who wants to testify specifically on the tax levy ordinance?
I am not seeing anybody with the number by their name for that item. No.
Very good. This is my fourth year, and I believe this is my fourth year in a row that nobody has signed up to testify on this item. Is there any further discussion from my colleagues on this particular item? Seeing none. Carla, please call the roll.
Hardesty,
Aye.
Udaly,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Wheeler.
I want to thank our taxpayers. At the end of the day, all of these services that are provided by the city of Portland are paid out of the pockets by all the people who live in this city. And I want to acknowledge that paying taxes can be a very, very challenging threshold for a lot of people to meet in this community. So I want to take this opportunity and thank the taxpayers of this community for supporting these services in the community. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Is there anything else we need to do, Director Kennard, before I adjourn us?
Nope, that is all for today.
Carla, anything else from your perspective?
I think we're good, Mayor.
Robert, anything from a legal perspective?
All good. Thank you.
Colleagues, thank you. We are adjourned.
Thank you.